So we appear to be going live right this second, Carl, because OBS, after like the 7th attempt of me being like, "Hey, do you want to go live?" It's like, "Oh, you want me to go live? Okay, oh, got it, right."
You mean right now? Oh, okay.
We'll cut out the bit that Carl said that was inappropriate beforehand.
It was a joke.
Well,
right?
I'm aware that it was a joke. Don't worry, it's fine. Carl didn't say anything that bad, everyone.
I was joking. It's called
He
a
was
joke.
joking about saying something bad because that's what many people on this service automatically do.
Yeah.
Especially when they're not on air. And sometimes when they are on air, which just baffles me even more.
The best example of that will always be the guy who he finished streaming, didn't turn off his mic or his camera, just whipped it out.
I mean, there's multiple of those.
Went down his knob.
But I'm like, it only ever benefited them because like they went viral and then more people started watching them. It's like, it's happened multiple times and I've got to just, at this point, assume it was not a mistake most of the times it happened.
Like, you can beat your wife live on stream and get more viewers.
Like, there was a couple who accidentally, like, after the streamer had finished on Twitch, like, the person immediately walks into the room the second they stopped being live, and like they made a full-on just porn video, and it was like, there's no way this wasn't planned. Like, they were trying to actively, like, you know, position themselves on camera and shit, and it's like, it's blatantly obvious. But, you know,
is that what we're doing then? So I know we've like been speaking about promotional tools.
We will certainly get more views, right?
It depends. It depends how good we are, I suppose.
But, you know, speaking of views, hopefully there are people watching at this point. I currently don't have a listing of our concurrent viewers, so YouTube, what the fuck are you doing? But also, you know, let us know how our audio sounds, because we literally spent extra amount of time today just testing out our mics, me doing like test recordings and everything. Every time we live stream, people have a problem with the audio, but it doesn't seem to be a problem with any other video.
Yep.
There we go. Someone immediately saying audio is bang on this week.
In which case, let's get right into it, Lucas. What are we doing? This is the Wiki Weekdays podcast with me, Karl Smallwood, and our host for this week, Lucas Holland.
It doesn't sound like I'm a host. You just did an intro, Carl.
Yeah, well,
my job's being fucking stolen. Oh, welcome to the Wiki Weekdays podcast, where we wind up a wiki, we take a deep dive, and we keep swimming until we find something fun to talk about. I'm your host for this week's episode. Apparently I'm not, but I definitely am meant to be. I'm Lucas Holland, and I am joined, as always, by the lovely Karl Smallwood.
That's true. That bit's true.
That is true. Lovely. And, you know, for anyone that happens to be new here, is this your first time here? Karl and I are both about to just bring a wiki page of our choosing to hopefully find a fun discussion from. And it is your job as listeners to decide which wiki won each week, which, of course, you can officially vote for by joining our community Discord, the link to which you can find in the description below.
Yes, so which wiki won this week is just our fun way of deciding, like, not who brought the best wiki, because we can have a wiki about anything we want to talk about, but which wiki brought the best discussion. So it's not necessarily the thing you find the most interesting, or a topic that is more important to yourself. Which wiki inspired the best, funniest, most interesting conversation?
And last week it was, you know, the Titans that are the Titans from Attack on Titan versus the Titans that are Wallace and Gromit.
The
cultural Titans. And Wallace and Gromit were too big for Attack on Titan this time and knocked out
one Titan and Jaeger. Yeah, they thought the Colossal Titan was big. Wait until they see the Gromit Titan. So that means your wiki won last week, Monfrere. So congratulations.
It does, yeah. Like, small little claps for Lucas. And, you know, I guess, like, decide which wiki won this week when we've unveiled what we're talking about. But I'm a bit thrown off because there's something I remember that we need to talk about in the intro that I haven't written down in the intro yet. So I write this down to remember everything, but I haven't written down that we now have a Patreon.
We do indeed, yes.
And we have a Patreon where you can just go support the channel, and we will start putting up a monthly vote Both Carl and I will do a separate monthly vote for anyone on like the $5 tier to be able to vote on a poll, which basically just decides one of the video topics for the week, and it will. I think generally the idea is that it won't be a podcast discussion topic. It'll be
a full video,
full its own video topic where we can put clips in and stuff. So like maybe that means more or less to some people. I don't know, but let us know. Give us feedback. We want to figure this out as like a community thing with everyone helping us support.
It gives us a chance as well to just get an idea of the kind of content people want to see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And like it both makes people have the ability to influence what they want to see and also gives us better feedback on the type of things that people want to see.
Everybody wins.
Exactly, yes. And obviously we are streaming this episode live currently, so if you are in the live chat, please just give us a little like to help people find while we're live, because that's how YouTube works. And of course, during the podcast while we are live, if anyone posts a super chat, then we will make sure to read that out, and it's a way to get your voice heard on the podcast.
Or you could like break into my house, steal my identity.
I mean, that is another option, but I think like, paying $1 to get your comment read out is probably a lot easier than breaking into Carl's house.
Let's go into the Discord. Let's go into the Discord and talk to us. It's great.
That's
We've got a meme page now and everything.
We have.
You can see pictures of Lucas's famous sausage.
My famous sausage is indeed on there. And without explaining any of the reasoning behind that sentence, I'm going to move on and say that, obviously if you're watching on YouTube later on, remember to give us the old like and subscribe nonsense, ring that bell, give us a good comment, just feed that algorithm and help us out. But obviously you can also find us on podcast services by simply searching for the Wiki Weekdays podcast. You can give us some fun reviews over there.
Like, how much does this make the Wiki Weekdays podcast just feel like a job to you? How much does going through all that spiel? Does it?
A lot.
Yeah, it's not great, is it?
It's content making, Carl.
It is, but it's one of those things, right? It makes you can literally hear the cadence of your voice shift, and the register in which you speak just shifts when you go into promotion mode. It's like, is the content creator's equivalent of answering the phone when you're at work?
I was literally about to say, like, this is my customer service voice when I'm doing the intro. Like, it literally is how I was when I was working at restaurants. Like, that's the exact voice and cadence that I use.
Oh, it's like, because I recently have been doing like a lot of talking on my phone, so I've like recently managed to purchase this property that I'm living in. Yay! So when I call them, it's like, hi, because you've got to like you're on an episode of The Apprentice, right? It's like, hi, just Carl talking here. Just calling for some feedback and some like follow up on my purchase. Because you don't want to sound too aggressive on the phone, especially when it's someone who's got your money.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you've got to do that thing where it's like, yeah, just call in again. It's like, I'm all right, not to bother anyone, but it's kind of important.
Yeah, it's funny because like both me and my partner Jenna, we both work from home, and like there's times when I'll be like, just walking around the house and hear her on like a meeting or something or a work call or whatever, and I just hear like the completely different person that she is at work. Like,
who is
like,
this
oh
lady?
god. But yes, yeah, it's very funny going through the intro of like, as you say, you can literally tell that I've like got a different cadence of voice when I'm talking and reading through my little intro script, where I will have to remember to add in our little Patreon plug. Yeah, but Carl, I mean, the intro's over now, Carl, so bring us a wiki.
Okay, so the wiki I brought for this week is, I've been watching The Boys, and I'm not going to talk about The Boys because The Boys is currently still airing, but that made me think of I saw, as always happens when a new season of The Boys gets released, when did The Boys suddenly start getting political? Because idiots realise it's making fun of them.
So
and I thought, okay,
just
discuss.
Go on a tangent before we begin your topic. I saw a legitimate comment the other day that was saying it's a bit far to call Stormfront a Nazi.
She's called Stormfront. And like just all you need is the picture of her in the latest season where like Homelander's looking at her like, I sure miss my Nazi girlfriend. It's a picture of her in front of a big fucking swastika.
Yeah, like literally she gets married in front of a swastika. There's pictures of her that get leaked
next to Hitler.
next to like Hitler, Goebbels, all that jazz, like presumably at her wedding as well, like meaning they're friends. And then she literally says, as she's like confronting Starlight, is like, people like what I have to say, they just don't like the word Nazi.
Yeah.
And then there's people out there going, well, I think it's a bit far to say that she's a Nazi, though.
It's because they agree with some parts of what she's saying, and just like the character says, they don't like that label because they don't want to have to confront that about themselves, that the things that they believe are eerily, scarily close to something a fictional super Nazi is saying.
But anyway, before we completely get demonetized, what topic have you got?
Well, I thought, like, what's another series that is very satirical and often gets misunderstood? And we're
Mr.
British,
Bean.
so I thought, let's talk about a British institution now. Judge Dredd. 'Cause people always forget
Okay.
Judge Dredd is British because it's a satirization of American policing.
And it was only when we started discussing Judge Dredd that I realised that it was satirical at all, because the only exposure I'd had at the time was the movie Dredd, which takes itself very seriously.
It does take itself seriously, but there are elements of satire in there. It's just very, very blunt. It's very British. It's very understated.
It is very, like,
Dry.
yeah, it's a movie that's over the top, but not necessarily a movie that, like, hits you hard in the face to the point where, like, you know that it's definitely satire, because there's plenty of movies that take themselves seriously that all exactly like that Dread movie, so it's a hard line to know whether that's like doing it on purpose or not.
See, I almost follow you there, Lucas, but you're forgetting there's a part where Judge Dredd shoots white phosphorus at people indoors.
I mean, I would say in a Zack Snyder movie that he's taking that perfectly deadly seriously, and that's super cool, right?
It's super cool, but at the same time, like, he has a gun that shoots white
Oh,
phosphorus for urban pacification.
to clarify, I'm not saying I think that's cool. I'm saying that there's plenty of filmmakers that would think that that's just a cool thing to put in their movie.
Okay, that's fair, but you know, the wiki we're using is just regular old Wikipedia. So, Judge Dredd, or Judge Joseph Dredd, is a fictional character created by writer Jean Wagner and artist Carlos Esquera. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. He first appeared in the second issue of 2000 AD in 1977, a British weekly anthology comic. He is the magazine's longest running character, and in 1990 got his own title, the Judge Dredd magazine. He also appears in a number of films and video game adaptations. So, Judge Dredd is a British character. And Carlos Esquera, the artist, is Spanish born, but has largely worked in the UK for all
So-
their work. And John Wagner, I'll just double check here, is an American born but British comics writer. So he lives
To
in Britain.
clarify, it's a British creation but an American character.
Yes, it is a satirization of American politics and policing, which it goes into here. So, Judge Dredd is a law enforcement and judicial officer in the dystopian future city of Mega City 1, which covers most of the east coast of North America. He is, in the context of the universe, a street judge, a character empowered to summarily arrest, convict, sentence, and execute criminals. Judge Dredd's stories often satirize American and British culture with a focus on authoritarianism and police brutality. And because it's like, you know, it's very British in its writing, I said it's an American-born author, but they live in Britain for many years, and it's satirizes like American politics and policing with that wry sense of British humour, which is why Judge Dredd is almost entirely unique in comics.
Yeah, and I'm sure there are like equivalents to Pull, but it's definitely hard to think of many like British written comics that got big, and obviously The Boys being one of them. I think like Garth Ennis may be Irish, so I'm not 100% sure, but I think they're Northern Irish, so they're part of the UK, I think.
Mm-hmm. But also the
believe.
comics suck, so.
Yes, yeah, that's true. But like, you know, we were talking about The Boys earlier. I wanted to at least acknowledge their existence, but it is hard to think of many comics that are like originally from a UK writer. Obviously, Watchmen's another one, right? Alan Moore.
Alan Moore, yes.
Yeah.
I think he still lives in his hometown, like some small northern town. Like everyone just says like he's like a wizard. He just wanders around, and every now and again you'll see him.
To clarify, Dark in chat, like it's not. I was confused whether Northern Irish people were part of the UK. I don't remember whether Garth Ennis is Northern Irish or Irish.
Yeah.
That was my
Even
confusion.
even still, I don't think many Irish people like that. So you know what? I don't. We're in the middle though, so we're stuck. And I think the closest property you could get to compare to Judge Dredd is Warhammer, which is also British and also
Yes.
is similarly often misunderstood as being satire because it's very dry. The universe is portrayed in a very dry, matter-of-fact way, which is quintessentially British humour,
Hmm.
but it doesn't travel very well. And I think something we've talked about before is like British humour often doesn't travel very well and is often misread. Like a lot of people assume that British humour is not humour and is just straight up insulting.
And a lot of the time, people don't necessarily get the satire within the satirical nature of British humor, like with Warhammer, as you say, is a good example. Where a lot of non-British people don't realize how over the top, like satirical it is to a British person.
Yeah, the opening line of that establishes the universe is in the grim dark future. There is only war, and then Judge Dredd. I think it's really funny because their satirization is actually not as insane because Mega City One is like this huge, big city, basically in the Judge Dredd universe. If anyone's unfamiliar, my understanding of it is just like, oh, there's a nuclear war, everything got fucked, so they just combined all the cities into one. Mega City One supposedly has like this ridiculously high crime rate. Someone worked it out and went, if you work it out per person or like per thousand, it actually has like a comparable crime rate to like LA in the 80s.
Yeah, right. Because
It's not even that bad.
because it's a mega city and the population's so high, it's like actually, yeah, the crime rate is in line with American crime rates in cities. It's not
Yeah.
that ridiculous.
And we do have here, it's a brief publication history for Judge Dredd. So when comic writer or comic editor Pat Mills was developing 2000 AD in 1976, he brought in his former writing partner, John Wagner, to develop characters. Wagner had written a Dirty Harry style tough cop story, One Eyed Jack for Valiant, as just a character who took that concept to its logical extreme. In a 1995 interview, Wagner said, when Pat was putting together 2000 AD, we realised from the success of One Eyed Jack that this was the kind of story the paper should have. A really hard, tough cop. Again, taken to its logical extreme. So that's the idea of like, imagine Dirty Harry, like, a cop who doesn't play by the rules, a loose cannon who can just do whatever they want to solve crimes. Let's take that to its logical extreme and just say now that's legal and that's what police are.
Yeah, yeah. And speaking of Dirty Harry, just to go on a tangent, like I was watching YouTube the other day and someone brought up like Edgar Wright, like student film or whatever, like a film that he made as a kid that
Yeah,
was
Fistful of
basically
Fingers.
like Dirty Harry, yeah.
Yeah.
And like I didn't realize that like essentially Edgar Wright's first ever little project was a massive Dirty Harry ripoff, like in just another satirical way.
Well, Dirty Harry is just a rip off of those samurai movies anyway, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like all like westerns and things that came from West. It's like, it's a Dirty Harry, like the lone cop is an extension of the Western, like the lone sheriff or cowboy or wandering outlaw who fights for good is just a rip off of the Japanese stuff. Everything's
Yeah.
derivative.
I mean, yeah. It's just funny to see like this, like fresh faced, like 16-year-old Edgar Wright do like a weird Dirty Harry movie in like his back garden or something.
Yeah, it's a Fistful of Fingers, I believe. So you can go look that up. It's got, I think it's on YouTube. It's like 20, 30 minutes, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
It's fun. And then we're going to bring it back to Judge Dredd. Mills had developed a horror strip called Judge Dredd, and that's Dredd as in scary, so Dread. After the stage name of British ska and reggae artist Alexander Minto Hughes, before abandoning the idea as unsuitable for the new comic. But the name, with the spelling changed to a modified Dredd, Dredd, at the suggestion of sub-editor Kelvin Gosnell, was adapted by Wagner.
Pretty cool.
So it's like, so anyone's just curious about the name, it is like just Dredd, right? It's like it's like a punch, right? Dredd. It has like that short, impactful hit of just Judge Dredd.
Yeah, and like that's the thing. It in the comic, is that like a code name or is that just his actual name? Yeah,
just his name.
It's
like
one
a
of
legend
those,
in the comic as well.
It's one of those where it's like another comic book character where like their name just happens to be very fitting of what they end up doing for their like
It's
career.
Really fucking cool, right?
It's a cool sounding name for a scary cop that kills everyone. Yeah.
Yeah. The task of visualizing the character was given to artist Carlos Esquera, a Spanish artist who had worked for Mills before on Battle Picture Weekly. Wagner gave Esquera an advertisement for the film Death Race 2000, specifically showing the character of Frankenstein, played in the movie by David Carradine. And Frankenstein is also in the reboot, and he's just like, death race is, again, a satirical thing. In the future, in prisons, just to escape prison, you can like shorten your sentence by just driving in a race where you run people off the road and kill each other.
And
the character Frankenstein is like a masked racer, which is, again, a very common trope of like, the masked racer who no one knows who they are, who like, wins everything.
David Carradine's like the one who played Bill from Kill Bill, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, clad in black leather on a motorbike is a suggestion of Dredd's appearance. Esquire added body armor, zips, and chains. So you got to add some zips and chains in the 80s, which Wagner initially objected to, commenting that the character looked like a Spanish pirate. Wagner's initial script was rewritten by Mills and drawn up by Esquire. The hardware and cityscapes Esquire had drawn were far more futuristic than the near-future setting originally intended. In response, Mills did not ask the artist to change their work, but instead rewrote the story to take place further into the future.
Right, yeah.
That's why it's like very cyberpunk.
So I was wondering with the whole like the Death Race 2000 and like 2000 AD, like was it meant to be set in like the year 2000? But no, it's very far future.
Just the near future. Like, this is potentially something that could happen a few years down the line. But instead of saying, no, fuck it, go a few hundred years into the future. Give it all sorts of like cool futuristic shit, because the cityscape that this artist has drawn looks rad as shit.
Yeah, and I love and hate the idea of a mega city. Like, I don't like the idea of them ever existing in real life, but they're a cool concept.
It's like the idea of like Neo Tokyo from Akira, isn't it? So, like, the first country to say fuck it, Neo whatever, like, wins. They win the future. Like, if like tomorrow, like Keir Starmer said, if you vote for me, I'm changing London to Neo London. We win. The first country to do it wins.
That reminds me of kind of that idea that's probably never going to happen, but that city that was proposed of like the line.
Oh, that's like still being built like in Dubai or something.
I think it's still like technically happening, but it sounds like a terrible idea because it's just there's a good reason that most cities evolve to like be circles, not lines.
Yeah, because you go outwards. A line means like, say, if you're at this fucking side,
good luck getting to the other fucking side. Yeah,
that's the whole idea of building cities outwards.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the idea is it the 15-minute city that right-wing people fucking hate, because they think that living in a walkable city, so 15-minute city, if anyone familiar with the concept, is just you can walk within 15 minutes to near enough any amenity you would need in day-to-day life. So shops, hospitals, schools, fire station, all that good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Right-wing people fucking hate this because they seem to think that living in a walkable 15-minute city means you're not allowed to have a car. When it just means you don't need a car.
Yeah. It's like, it's already rough enough getting public transport it is. I can't imagine getting on a train from one end of the city to the other where it's just a big line. You got to take like a 6-hour commute.
People figured this out in SimCity.
I mean, it literally seems like one of those like YouTube videos that you saw of like, I designed the worst city possible and it's a big line.
It's a straight line.
Yeah.
I just wrote the word penis out of like housing.
Like, let's see how people survive in this city. It's like, not well.
Not well at all. And then we have here, speaking of not surviving well, character and appearance. So Joseph Dredd is the most famous of the street judges that patrol Mega City 1. As a street judge, he's empowered to instantly convict, sentence, and sometimes execute offenders for any crime. And that's where the satire comes in of like everything is a crime. Like in the Dredd movie, you have like Carl Urban walk past that guy who's like he's homeless. It's like training his new judge. It's like, Anderson, like, what's the punishment for vagrancy? It's like 3 months in the cube. What should we do? What's a murderer? Should we let him go? And it's like the only time Dredd shows leniency is like, don't be here when I come back.
Yeah.
Because the punishment for everything is just you go to fucking jail.
And the thing as well is that judges specifically get to be judge, jury, and executioner, so they can just decide that your crime is worthy of being killed on the spot.
Yeah, and you have no recourse. Like, if Judge Dredd says, okay, you're convicted of this crime, how do you plead? Not guilty. Well, he's the judge, so he's like, okay, you are guilty. I saw it. And that's the thing, that's why it's the satirization, right? That's why the satire element's going of like, wait, how is that fair?
It's it's the cop's word against my word. Like, what?
It's the ultimate example of that, isn't it? Yeah. Take it to its logical extreme of a police officer who's empowered to literally dole out death. and empowered to do so by the state.
Yeah, and it's not one of those, obviously, again, it is a lot of commentary on the fact that both, like, Britain and America, like, cops get away with this kind of shit all the time to various degrees, and it's not the fact that, oh, they have to, like, keep it under the radar, sweep it under the rug, like, lie about it. It's like, no, these judges just are allowed to do it.
They're allowed to, yeah, they're empowered to do it by the states. And what makes Dredd so interesting is that he does have an unflappable, unwavering moral code. So, like, for the most part, he's always right. But because he so rigidly sticks to the law, and the law is so unfair in that universe, that's where the interesting stories lie.
Yeah.
And that's where, like, a lot of, like, Judge Dredd's morality gets challenged in a lot of the stories. Of, like, there's somewhere it's like, vagrancy. It's like, that's a crime. It is a crime. You should be punished for it. But it's like, is it fair to punish people for not having a house? Is it really their fault? If anything, it's society's fault, right?
Yeah,
That
I
person
mean,
doesn't have a house.
to a very different degree, it does, like, remind me a little bit of when we were teenagers. The UK started trying to make, like, loitering in groups bigger than, like, I think it was 5 people was
It's
illegal.
now a gang. It's a gang now.
Yeah, like, they literally would disperse any, especially younger people, from hanging around in groups of more than, I think it was about 5.
Which
So,
doesn't
like,
fix anything. Yeah, it doesn't fix the root cause of the problem, which is you've got nothing to do because there are no amenities for kids and teenagers.
yeah,
It just stops you from being in view. It's like homelessness, isn't it? Of like, you have those videos in America of like the police bulldozing homeless camps, and goes, does this get rid of the homeless people? No, it just means we can't see them anymore.
same
So
with,
there's
like,
still homeless people. It's just now they can't even live in the tents that they built for themselves.
yeah, and it's the same reason why you see so much, like, I believe it's like brutalist architecture, right? Where it's designed so that homeless people can't settle anywhere around the
Yeah,
city and stuff.
brutalism's more just it's built with efficiency and economy of space in mind.
Is it?
What you're
Right.
thinking of is hostile architecture.
That's the one.
Which is
Yes.
like where you've got like benches that have like bars in the middle so people can't lie down on them,
Mhm.
or like spikes onto like overpasses so homeless people can't sleep there. It's like it doesn't fix homelessness; it just punishes homeless people and stops them from being in view.
Yeah. It's like, as long as, all the homeless people and the kids hanging around as, like, gangs because they've got nothing else to do, like, as long as we can't see them, then it's not a problem. It's like,
Yeah, it
still is
doesn't
a
fix the
problem.
root cause.
Yeah.
Which is like, what Judge Dredd is partly satirizing. He mentions here. So, Dredd is armed with a lawgiver. That is a pistol programmed to recognize only his palm print and capable of firing 6 types of ammunition. Those ammunition include high explosive and incendiary. There's also in the Judge Dredd universe, there are like, because there's werewolves and shit, there's like all sorts of crazy bullshit going on. There's like special judges that deal with like paranormal threats, because you know what? Werewolves commit crimes too. And they like fire like anti-ghost bullets, which is kind of awesome.
Like, I know someone mentioned earlier in chat about Blade. It's like, where's the Blade crossover with Dredd where they're both taking out werewolves and vampires together?
Don't think Judge Dredd deals with vampires. That's not his like department.
No, but Blade does. What if Blade one day rang up and was like, I've got a problem with vampires, I've heard you've got a problem with werewolves, let's help each other out.
Let's go. His helmet obscures his face except for his mouth and jaw. He also rides a large Lawmaster motorcycle equipped with machine guns, a laser cannon, and full artificial intelligence capable of responding to orders and operating itself. So there's a Fact Fiend video I'm going to write, hey, Fact Fiend's coming back, which is just like Judge Dredd's motorbike can arrest you. Because in the comics, like, it's got such sophisticated AI, sometimes his motorbike pulls up and arrests people for him. Can you imagine getting arrested by a motorbike? That's like, imagine going to court and like, what proof you got? The motorbike saw you do it. So what? It's saying Sky when a chicken sees you commit crimes. It's like, you don't believe a chicken over me?
Oh god, like how insulting would it be to be arrested by a cop's police bike?
The police, my motorbike saw you do it.
It's like that's
5
some Night
months in the
Rider
queue.
shit.
So in an interview, Esquire commented on how he designed the character, stating he received a very basic description of a menacing policeman dressed in black, driving a motorcycle. He later described the process on creating the character. When I create a character, I do it fairly quickly. The longer you stay working on an idea, the more chance you have to spoil it, and Dredd was not an exception. I drew the essentials, a grim face, a black suit, a menacing helmet, based on those worn by Greeks. I know they're not just Greek people in general. They don't all walk around on Lawmaster motorcycles like
They
the
should.
Spartans and stuff. Protections and a gun readily available when sitting on his bike. After that, I started on embellishments, the protections, and bike with symbols, and it maybe took a couple of days in total. Dredd's entire face is never shown in the strip. This began as an unofficial guideline, but later became a rule. As John Wagner once said, it sums up the facelessness of justice. Justice has no soul, so it isn't necessary for readers to see Dredd's face. And to be honest, I don't want you to. So that's why Dredd never takes his helmet off, because he represents justice in its purest sense. And justice cannot be reasoned with.
You know, that is why people get so mad about that. It was Seagal, wasn't it? Movie? Stallone movie. Okay, yeah. I haven't watched that one, but I've just heard many bad things because, like, they go as far as disrespecting the outright rule that Dredd doesn't take his helmet off.
Here's the thing as well, because Ascara was asked about that, and he went, "Well, okay, yeah, it is a thing. It's a theme. It's a thematic thing that Judge Dredd represents the faithlessness of justice mentioned, but Sylvester Stallone kind of looks like how I imagine Dredd would anyway, so it's all right." And he even drew some artwork of like inspired by like Dredd with like Stallone's jaw.
Yeah, and it's one of those of like it doesn't necessarily ruin the character, but it does give you a sign that they were missing the point.
Yeah, and I don't like how a lot of people single that out because I think like the actual characterization is quite good.
Right. Okay.
Like the characterization of Dredd is like just a completely inflappable hard ass who cannot be reasoned with, and also the outfit and the costuming. I prefer the costuming in the 80s I think it was in the 80s or 90s film than I do in the Karl Urban one because it looks too tactical. It looks too Hollywood. Do you like the Marvelification of outfits where like Captain America goes wearing like the goofy outfit in the 50s and they just put like fucking straps and shit on it. It just looks like military armor.
Yeah. It's like
I like the Stallone outfit where it's got like the big eagle on the he's got the big eagle pauldron and the outfit's like really colourful, like it is in the comics.
the Homelander pauldron. Got it.
Yeah, he's got the huge one, and the motorcycle's like ginormous and unwieldy, like it would be in the comics.
I mean, I still think the motorbike in the Karl Urban movie is pretty fucking menacing.
It's cool, and I do like that Karl Urban insisted on driving it himself because he's like, I fucking love Judge Dredd. I'm not riding that thing.
Yeah.
But I do. I think it gets unfairly maligned, and I think people just single out that one aspect of it and then dismiss the whole movie, which I hate. It's like that Halo show where people dismiss the whole thing because Master Chief takes his helmet off. It's like, well, Master Chief does take his helmet off in the books and in the games. It's not about him taking the helmet off. He does. It's not that big an issue. It's all the rest of the stuff, but it gets singled out as the one criticism, and then they don't want to talk about it anymore.
That's the thing, is like, I've only ever heard awful things about that movie, and most of it centers around like, oh, he didn't even keep his helmet on, and I've just been told that is a bad film. And
it's a fun film, and it's if you just accept it as an adaptation. There's also a really fun bit because I think it's Rob Schneider who's like the guy who he teams up with, like a dumb sidekick, and he arrests Rob Schneider earlier in the movie. And then when Dredd gets sent into the wastelands for committing a crime because he's framed, like just Rob Schneider sat next to him, he goes, and he holds his hand up to cover up the top half of his face. He goes, "Hang on, you're just Dredd. You arrested me, you prick."
It's like the classic thing, isn't it? Of like, oh, I would definitely know that Robert Pattinson's Bruce Wayne was Batman in that universe just because like the like bone structure that he's got in the bottom half of his face, even without the cowl, it's like you've got a really fucking noticeable like bottom half of your face. I'm sorry.
I also think that Stallone just has a naturally rugged lantern jaw, where I cannot take the Dredd movie seriously because it's very obvious that Karl Urban's doing this the entire movie. It's so obvious that he's doing it the entire movie because you can see that he has a cramp in his chin. And because it's obvious that he's doing that, it doesn't come across as natural. Because you can just tell that in every scene he's like every single time.
You can definitely tell, but for me it gets to the point where like partway through the movie I stop noticing that it's an actor doing that, and more it just looks like Dredd's face to me.
Yeah. And I much prefer Stallone's reading of I Am the Law. They do use the line in the Karl Urban one, but it just says like, "In here, I'm the law." But like Stallone just screams it and fires his gun wildly into the air, which seems more like a police officer to me. If you're going to do a parody of a police officer, it's them screaming, "I am the law," and missing every shot.
God.
That's a police officer.
What was the one not long ago where I can't remember whether they just got alerted or started shooting at like a squirrel that ran past or something.
An acorn landed on the bonnet of their police car.
Oh, it was an acorn, yeah. I'm just thinking, like, I guess
they
I've
drop
got
to the ground,
and
scream, "I've been hit,"
associated.
because that's the thing police officers are taught to do, even if they're not, because it allows them to just argue that they feared for their life. And then he fires into his own police car, which had a suspect in the back.
Well, it's you know, again, making reference to The Boys, just because like it's fresh in my head as well because I'm rewatching it at the moment. Like one of the first episodes, Homelander's like, "Remember, what do we do?" And he just passes Maeve the gun. Like they shot first, and then they get shot a bunch of times by the person, and then it's like, right, yeah.
The fact as well, like they can use that as justification when they're both bulletproof is hilarious. That's another great bit of satire. They use that as justification when they're bulletproof. Also, as well, if you watch, you'll notice that when they go to arrest that guy, he immediately just puts his hands up and walks towards them smiling because he was a paid plant from Vought.
Oh, right, okay, fair.
It looks like Homeland. There's a bit in the new season where Homelander talks about, I've stopped some actual crimes, and he can't think of a single thing he's actually done because all the crimes are set up by Vought.
Right.
So if you watch that guy, he just walks towards Maeve. He's like, "Okay, I've done my job," and she just and like Homelander just kills him.
Yep. So, but they shot first, so it's fine. You lasered him in half, and you're bulletproof. This was not appropriate force. Like
when you're bulletproof, like there's not really much justification. It's like, we won't talk about the latest season. We'll move on.
I haven't seen any latest season yet, so please don't.
Okay. So on rare occasions, Dredd's face has been seen in flashbacks to his childhood, but these pictures lack any real detail. In one early story, Dredd is forced to remove his helmet, and the other characters react as if he is disfigured, but his face is covered by a faux censorship sticker. So it's like so horrifying you're not allowed to see it. But in my head, it's just he's so handsome. In Prague 52, Dredd's tenure on the lunar in Prague 52, during Dredd's tenure on the lunar colonies, he used the face change machine to impersonate the crooked lawyer of a gang of bank robbers. And then Miletus technically is a clone, and they've shown what the person he's a clone of looks like. But when they realized, wait, oh shit, that's what Judge Dredd will look like. Every time they show that guy, they cover the top half of his head. So that became a running gag. Because they realized, oh wait,
he's a clone of somebody, and you're not meant to see who Dredd is, but they showed who the clone of
they didn't realize, oh wait, no, that means we know what Dredd looks like because he's a clone of him. So now every time they show that guy, they cover the top half of his face as well.
And I think, like, obviously, I don't know too much about the comics and stuff, but I think it would have been funny if it was that he always kept his helmet on because it gave him some kind of like psychic protection, because there's obviously like that in the movie, the Dredd movie, they have like the rookie with them that's the psychic, so I presume that exists within the comic book universe. It does, as well.
Yes. Like, so there are psychic judges, which fucking sucks, right? And a great detail I like in that Dredd movie is that there's Joanne there, like the betrayal when the judges come in, and the corrupt judge, and you get that great line where it's like, okay, how much do you want to kill the judges that are here? He's like, okay, 1 million credits. It's like, 1 million credits? It's like, do you know who is in here? No, I do, 1 million credits. His psychic judge friend, when she comes across the person who's going to betray them, immediately, without hesitation, guns them down. Because she can read their mind. And she can read their intention that she knows they're going to betray them. Which must suck, right? It's going to be really hard to, like, it's already hard enough to argue with Judge Dredd. When you've got someone who can read your mind.
It's really tough to argue with, like, a judge when they're just allowed to make up whatever the fuck they want and be like, yeah, it's my word against them. They committed a crime and got killed. But when it's my word against them and I can read their fucking mind.
I know he did it.
Yep.
There's a fun little tidbit about Judge Dredd, which I mentioned a fact for an article, but it never became a video, so maybe one day it will. In Carlos Esquera's original design, Dredd had large, full lips, and he said that this was to put a mystery as to his racial background. However, not all the artists who worked on the strip were made aware of this feature. Mike McCannon, for example, drew Dredd as a black man, whilst Brian Bolland and Ron Smith drew him as white. As the strip was not yet printed in colour, this went unnoticed. And I like that it wasn't clear what race Dredd was, and it wasn't until the strip was started to be printed in colour, they had to make a final decision, and they said, well, okay, Dredd's white. If he's going to be a cop, and he's a satirisation of American cops, a stereotypical American cop is white. But
I
I do
mean,
like that they left his background ambiguous.
I like that, but it does make sense that when they had to make a decision, it's like, well, who's going to be the face of like, yeah, this satirical over characterization of like a stereotypical cop going over the boundaries and killing people? It's like probably makes sense that it's a white guy, right?
But it is interesting, right?
It
Because you
is
always hear this,
interesting,
like,
yeah.
the fact that he was originally written as like, how many characters can you think of where race is largely incidental and they were written as black? Not many.
Yeah, yeah.
It's something we talked about before, isn't it?
We have, yeah, and obviously, like, uh, we've gone on in the past about it and like talked about it before. Of like, generally speaking, the default in a lot of comic book spaces, especially, were that the character was white because a lot of the creators were, and that's where they just decided to like make every character white by default. And then a lot of the, especially main characters of comic books and stuff, not just like side characters and stuff, have
Mhm.
been created since by like people of color. They've specifically done that in with that in mind, and therefore it's a bit more incidental to the characters.
Yeah, to reflect their own experiences. But
Hmm.
something else that's interesting and rather unique about the Judge Dredd comics is time passes in the Judge Dredd strip in real time. So as a year passes in life in our world, a year passes in the comic. The first Dredd story was published in 1977 and was set in 2099, 122 years into the future. And so, stories published in 2024 are set 122 years in the future still, in the year 2146. Consequently, as former editor Alan McKenzie explains, every year that goes by, Dredd gets a year older, unlike Spider Man, who's been a university student for the past 25 years. Therefore, Dredd was 38 when he first appeared, but is now between 84 and 85 years old, with 66 to 67 years of active service.
Yeah, I was like, surely this guy should be fucking retired by now.
Well, that was actually an issue for a while because this was a thing people knew. And you're like, well, he's like, they talk in the comics of like, and it's a really, I actually really like this plot point. They say when judges get to about 60, 70 years old, they retire. But judges can either retire and train other judges, which is normally the path, or if they want to continue dispensing justice, or if they've got like blemishes on their record and they'd like to, have their name cleared, they can go out into the wastelands, like the irradiated wastelands,
Hmm.
remove their armor, and take a gun and just walk. And it's called like the long walk. And they have to
Oh yeah,
go.
I've heard you talk
And the
about
quote is, "Bring law to the lawless."
it.
So just go out into the wasteland and just punish crime in the wasteland until they die. And that's something that happens in the Stallone movie where he goes out and he finds an old judge who they thought was dead, who did that, and he's like made his own little community. But there was
So
like a theory like, what's going to happen to Dredd? Like, is he going to retire? Is he going to die? And what do you think happened, Lucas? Because this is a character who was very, very valuable from an intellectual property standpoint.
I mean, that's the thing, right? I presume they found some kind of either like way to make him younger or an excuse that he ages slower than other people.
Yep. So, for almost 30 years, his age and fitness for duty were recurring plot points. So it's like a thing. Like in one comic, for example, he's diagnosed with a benign cancer of the duodenum. However, Dredd's aging was a continuous source of reader speculation until 2016, when writer Michael Carroll and artist Ben Wilshire published the story Carousel, in which Dredd is ordered to undertake rejuvenation treatment, which restores him to his physical prime, allowing so basically now is a man in his physical prime again. So we've got at least another 40 years of stories.
Yeah, it almost kind of reminds me of like Metal Gear Solid, where it's like, well, we've got multiple different Snake clones so that we can like have different storylines happening in different parts of time.
Or Magneto, where like in one comic, because they like, okay, Magneto was in World War II, he should be 85 years old. Having our characters beat up an 85-year-old Holocaust survivor is not great. Okay, so he turns into a baby, and then they age him back up, but they age him back up to being 40. Perfect. 30 more years of Magneto.
And that's the problem, isn't it? With like, you're gonna have to constantly find solutions to that if you want to keep the character's origin the same of him being a Holocaust survivor, which at this point is like pretty integral to the Magneto character.
It is after they changed it, yeah. But
After they changed it, of course, yeah. But like, with we talked about before, the Punisher, where they just changed it from him being like a vet of the Vietnam War to like a fictional war that happened 20 years after, so they can keep him younger.
Yeah, they just made up, like, they do my favorite thing when it's like, okay, we need a war, made up his Stan.
Yeah.
We don't want to offend any particular, like, readership. Made up his Stan. Let's go.
And it shows like an actual sign of growth within comics that like maybe it's a bit distasteful to like make a character that's like this insane killer that happened to be a vet of the Vietnam War.
Mhm.
Like maybe just make them part of a fictional war instead. Like maybe
Yeah.
that's an easier, nicer way to do things.
I never forget though, there was that post 9/11 comic where Magneto used his magnet powers to clean up the wreckage of the Twin Towers.
Like
It'd be too dark to do a video on, but post 9/11 America was fucking insane. That's where
yeah,
you got
but
like
like
freedom fries and stuff.
surely that's not that insulting to be like Magneto would even help out.
It's more though that they wrote a comic that made 9/11 canon.
Right, yeah, yeah.
And they say like the Juggernaut turns up. Like they took an actual tragedy while they were still cleaning up in real life.
Yeah, that's
Yeah. They have like Doctor Doom crying on the cover of like, I can't believe anyone would do this. Like Doctor Doom, you tried to genocide the world last week.
yeah, that's the thing, right? It's like how fresh do you do that kind of thing? If a few years later you want to refer back to, oh, do you remember that time like Magneto even helped out like clear up the wreckage, and even he's beyond that atrocity. It's like, but when it's like happening there and then, and you're gonna
They
make
were still
comic books
clearing it up at
about
the
it,
time.
yeah.
It's real bad. Yeah, so we'll move on. How Dredd's aging would be, like, it was a source of controversy, and they just de-aged him. Fuck it, comic stuff. However, regarding the possible death of the character, in an interview with Empire magazine in 2012, Wagner said, and I quote, "There could be many ways to end it, but the probability is that I won't still be around when it happens. I would love to write it, but I can't see it happening. I'll leave the script in my will."
The question is to who? Obviously, it's
I
just
don't know.
a company is the answer, but like, I like the idea of just like, oh, I'm leaving it to just like my brother, and they're like, wait, what? What? No, I can't be left with this responsibility.
You should just do like a Terry Pratchett, where when Terry Pratchett died, he went run over all my unfinished work with a steamroller.
Really?
Fucking legend. Yeah, yeah. He
Holy
had a bunch of
shit!
unpublished. He had a bunch of unpublished work. He's like, you know what? I don't want some dickhead finishing it. Run it over a steamroller, or you don't get my money out.
I mean, that's pretty fucking badass. Yeah.
I respect it because he's like, I don't want
Someone
some
coming
knobhead.
in, profiting and butchering my work.
Yep.
Yep, respect.
And there's like a bunch more stuff, like all the stories and things like that. But there's like, in popular culture, because Judge Dredd is this iconic aspect of British culture.
Mm-hmm.
And it mentions here, like, a couple of examples that we might be familiar with, Lucas. So Simon Pegg is a huge fan of 2000 AD, and Judge Dredd memorabilia supplied by the comics themselves appears in the background of several episodes of Spaced.
Yeah, I think when you mentioned 2000 AD, like a little thing in the back of my head was like, where do I know that from? And Spaced was in my brain, and like, yeah, I don't know much about 2000 AD, but yeah, I think I've like noticed it in the background of Space before.
Mm-hmm. And we mentioned this in the Warhammer.
The
In the
Warhammer.
That's how I went really northern. The Warhammer. In the Warhammer 40,000 universe, the Imperium's police force, the Arbites, Latin translates to simply Judge or Judgment, were visually based upon Judge Dredd, stemming from the Time Games workshop held the rights to the Judge Dredd games.
Oh shit.
The original designs for the Space Marines power armor and bikes also drew heavily upon the Judge's uniform and Lawmaster bikes. In return, the original design for the Space Marine jet bike also featured in an episode of Judge Dredd as the Judge anti-gravity bike. A number of artists who've worked on Judge Dredd have also worked for Games Workshop. Because they're like two British companies, they often work together, they held the license for a little bit.
I mean, that all makes sense, yeah. It would be cool as fuck though if like, one of those like Space Marine games or whatever it is, you could get like DLC where you play as Judge Dredd. That'd be awesome.
Judge Dredd skin in there. You see it's all like the Space Marine, like the huge big pauldron with the eagle on it.
Yes,
you see the visual similarities there, can't you? It mentions here as well, the video game Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War features a purchasable Judge Dredd character skin. which means that Call of Duty now features like Call of Duty. I wish they'd just say fuck it and stop setting their games. We mentioned that for like 9/11 earlier. Stop setting games in real world conflicts.
I
When we
mean,
know you're going to put Judge Dredd and Homelander and Skeletor and Nicki Minaj in the multiplayer,
yeah,
just make a shooter, set it in Made-Upistan, and just put all that bullshit in.
never forget that time. I can't remember exactly what it was, but when they took a setting where America committed war crimes,
Yeah,
kept
blame it on the Russians.
kept the same event happen, but made it the Russians that did it instead.
Yeah. And I
And
just think Call of Duty, you want to be Fortnite, but be Fortnite in first person. And because those crossovers are really fun. Like the Gundam one is legitimately fantastic.
I mean, that's the
It's-
thing, right? It is funny to just be like, hey, do you want to like play Nicki Minaj in Warzone?
Yeah. But they're putting in like actual real people.
They're
setting
about to do a
conflicts.
game based on the fucking Gulf War, yeah. Which is literally like most people playing were going to be fucking alive for that stuff.
Yeah. It's like there's like my theory is, do you know, like they have like they're always everything rips off Marvel now. The post credit scene is, do you know, like Mile High Club?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can see where I'm going with this, Lucas.
Yeah, no, yeah. I can't, and there was
Alternate
literally
history.
there's literally leaks and rumors that were happening before
9/11
the like
happens in this game.
recent Xbox event where they showed it off. Is like it's still rumored that 9/11 is going to appear in that game in some sense of like,
And you might think,
yay, Black Ops 6 needs to put that shit in.
that sounds really crass. Never forget, Call of Duty have a mission in one of their World War II games where you go to a concentration camp.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah.
one of those games.
You were allowed to like dick about in Auschwitz, right?
It's not Auschwitz, it's one of the other ones.
Is it a different
I
concentration?
think it's like Birkenau, Auschwitz. It's one of the other ones, but yeah. Maybe Buchenwald. I'm not sure. I never played that game because it fucking sucks.
Yeah, and also just not very fun as much as you might think. That like you're paying respects to that setting and that story.
That's always
and
the problem.
stuff.
Yeah,
Like it's better to just leave it be.
Especially when the game, if they just said it's just like Unreal Tournament, it's just hey, set it in like some weird nebulous future and just say, hey, fictional alternate reality, Homelander's here. Make it like Fortnite but with more violence. Because that's like a bunch of cool shit. I said you can have like a Gundam skin, like Gundam versus Nicki Minaj is such a dumb concept. I love it. But the fact it's ostensibly set in the real world and like there might be like a 9/11 map.
Yeah.
Where I can play as Skeletor and I can Fortnite dance on Ground Zero.
Yeah, that is just as well. Just going over to chat for a sec. Like interesting context of like glowy specs. I hope this is true. Saying like freedom fries was because France was opposed to US invading the Middle East, and they changed French fries to freedom fries. It's like
they did, yes.
Yeah, that's maybe not aged the best of like. Yeah, maybe now people are looking back and go, maybe, yeah, the US shouldn't have invaded the Middle East, and maybe that was a lot of bollocks, and, fuck George Bush and Tony Blair for that shit, and a lot of other people involved, obviously, but, yeah, the fact that we're basically getting the setup to all that happening a video game where it's going to be like, as you say, fucking Gundam versus Nicki Minaj in Warzone, but also it's going to be covering this as if it's, like, a very, like, serious topic, and how do you blend those two together?
You can't.
No.
They're wholly incongruent, and the more they try, the more embarrassing it becomes. And like I said, I think all they need to do for the next Call of Duty game is this next Call of Duty game going back to our roots. It's set during World War IV. So what? Yeah, World War IV. Fuck it.
I mean, I both like in terms of like lore wise, Call of Duty wise, story wise, and in terms of just gameplay, I think it was way more interesting when it was like, fuck it, Infinite Warfare's happening.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to get Jon Snow being... Or was it Jon Snow or was it Kevin Spacey for that one?
It was both.
Like, both Kit Harington and Kevin Spacey, that were right. Yeah.
The double threat.
And it was just like, fuck it, we're going to make up like this random plot. We're going to have it set in the future. We're going to give you loads of like cool tech to work with, future guns. Like, yeah, that's way better than just being like, oh, you want to like go through the Battle of Normandy again?
I told you they just need to do one say it's set during World War IV, and they just never explain it. It's like it's World War IV. Fuck it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Judge Dredd.
Yeah, yeah, you got me on that like mindset of like just Call of Duty, fuck off. Stop trying to like put actual atrocities into your video game about
Well,
like
I do
fighting
say
zombies and warfare and 12-year-olds screaming racial slurs at each other online. It's like it's not the place.
if they do let me though use a Golden Desert Eagle to quick scope the pilot of 9/11 out the sky, I'll give some props. Should we move on?
Yeah, we should move on from that, Carl. Like, oh dear, why did you have to say
I'm
it?
taking the piss.
I know you are. I
find
know. I know.
It's morally abhorrent. But the thing is, when they talk, whenever you see them talk about how they want to pay respect to it, still think about like there's going to be a multiplayer map, and there's going to be like Homelander
The worst
doing like
thing
360
is,
no scopes in
a
it.
lot of the people who were playing Call of Duty are sadly not the audience that they say they are. Of like they are 12 to 20-year-olds when a lot of those people shouldn't be playing that like 18 plus game. And I don't know if you've ever seen, because I know you don't particularly use TikTok, but I don't know if it's crept over to like other social media sites where like people are just making jokes online about like the second tower's been hit and stuff like that, and like making just like casual jokes about 9/11 nowadays, and I'm like, oh, they don't give a fuck.
It's been a thing for years. Yeah, it was normally like edgy humor, right?
But now it's not necessarily seen as like edgy humor, it's just seen as a meme.
Yeah,
And it's like
the reason,
crossed over that line to become more like normalized than just the edgy weirdos.
and I should clarify when I was making like light of it earlier, I'm not making light of anything that happened that day. I'm making light of the response to it.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that it is being used in such a crass, insulting way is what I find absurd and funny.
Yes.
Like the fact that like they think that the balls on like a company, like Marvel, to be like, let's put it into our comic books and have our stupid made up flying characters
And like that's
wax
thing
poetic
is, like,
about how bad it was.
I'm not American. I was alive during that time and have an outsider's understanding of how much that, affected the country, but I can't see myself making jokes of like terrorist attacks that have happened in my lifetime in the UK. And I'm just like, I don't understand that mindset of like making fun of it, wanting to put it in video games and stuff. I find it fucking abhorrent.
It's because they're like, again, like they're 13, 14 years old and are emotionally stunted.
And I'm sure, yeah, that's the thing, right? Is like, I'm sure I made awful jokes that were probably not about the same thing, but equivalent in all other aspects when I was like a fucking edgy 15-year-old.
Yeah, and you weren't doing this the entire time. Because you know what? You didn't have one. And thank God for that.
I mean, I probably had like a fucking Nokia phone that was indestructible at the time.
Indeed.
Maybe like a Sony Ericsson with that little shutter on it.
Oh, well, let's move swiftly on. Let's go to the housekeeping now. So something I've alluded to a couple of times during my my wiki entry was the fact that FactFiend will be returning. So the announcement I would like to make for everyone listening to the sound of my voice, whether it be live or at home after the fact, like sat on the toilet touching their tudge, is the fact that FactFiend will return. I just like say because it always makes you do that. See, I wouldn't say
It was
it
so out of nowhere.
I wouldn't say if it didn't make you laugh.
I was just like, I was half zoning out reading chat and listening to you just like start the spiel. And it just, Carl was like, oh, Lucas's attention is drifting.
I wouldn't say if it didn't make you laugh.
Fuck's sake.
Yes, Fact Theme will be returning. We just recorded the first episode, right, Lucas? That'll be coming out.
We did, weirdly enough, to get behind the scenes, like a little extra, is it wasn't the first Fat Fiend episode that we've recorded for the return of Fat Fiend, but it is the first recording that's going to go out for the return of Fat Fiend.
It is indeed, yes. And Fact Fiend will be returning, if all goes to plan, next week. So next Friday, keep an eye on the original Fact Fiend channel. There'll be a video going out sometime that day. It'll be the old format. Nothing will have changed, save for the location from which it's filmed.
So I'm now the green screen, Carl? What do you mean?
Well, I turn that light behind me green, so that's close enough. So it's the format's the same, the banter's the same. I'm still writing the articles, I'm still writing the scripts, but we brought it back as an opportunity to promote the work of myself and my friends. which includes this channel, this podcast, the Patreon for this channel and this podcast. Because we had access to all these like hundreds of thousands of potential viewers and just thought, well, now I bought this house, I am far less stressed than I was. I didn't realize how stressful it was constantly having to worry about, hey, I might not have somewhere to live.
Mm-hmm.
I need to fill in all these forms. I've gone to like 15 viewings. I've lost several £100 because the King's survey didn't go right. Oh. And now I don't have that stress. So I thought, you know what?
Mm-hmm.
Wiki Weekends is fun. It's growing, but it can grow faster.
It could grow faster. Yeah.
And
like,
what I need to do?
it's that weird, frustrating thing of like, we are happy with where Wiki Weekends is at the moment, but as a person who was part of the Fat Fiend channel for years, watching it grow, it is annoying that we decided to make the decision to split off the channel and promote it on Fat Fiend when Fat Fiend was like getting less views.
We should have done it earlier.
And it should have just immediately been the idea of like, hey, a couple of these videos did well, we should make it its own channel.
As soon as I see it. But you know what? Hindsight is 2020.
Exactly, yeah. It definitely is just one of those things of like, okay, that was probably a mistake not to do at the time. It's a little bit frustrating, but we can take advantage of it now.
Yes. You can only look forward, and I am looking forward to the future. But if anyone does miss that format, even though I feel it's very similar to the Wiki Weekends format in terms of like the banter, but if you miss like the more scripted, fact-based content, that will be returning.
Yeah,
and look forward to stuff we cover in Wiki Weekends, like you mentioned that little fact about because I've already got that script written. I just need to publish it on the site. Of just Judge Dredd's motorbike can arrest you, and it'll most likely be used to promote this podcast. It's all very circular. But that's the only thing I have to plug for housekeeping about yourself.
I will just do the usual plug of you can find me playing games over on Twitch. I am at Legend of Kanto on Twitch, and you can find me doing like Mass Effect Mondays currently with Karl. I do Tunic Tuesdays where I play Legend of Zelda games, and Thunder Badge Thursdays where I play Pokemon games. And at the moment I'm currently trying to make the next Monday game happen of like Super Mario RPG Remake on the Switch. And then also the fun, exciting announcement that Karl, yesterday, Nintendo decided to give us a Zelda game where you play Zelda.
So that's something I've been asking for years. Every time you stream like one of these Legend of Zelda games, I remember asking like, okay, so how many of these are there? Like 15. Have you ever played as the title character? No.
No. Like, there's elements like in Spirit Tracks where like people are like, oh yeah, but you get to like vaguely control the Ghost of Zelda inside the Phantom Armor to help with puzzles. That's also the game where they kill Zelda off. So, not the best.
So it's the first time you ever been in control. It's weird, like 30 years of a series, and like you've never got to play as the title character.
Yeah, a couple of people in the chat of like, yeah, they definitely could have called it The Legend of Link and just been like, fuck it. Fuck you, Link. I love the fact that just immediately it's like, we send the boy into the void, you're playing as Zelda, fuck you.
I bet that was suggested by someone, and just like a marketing guy went, we'll make more money if we market Legend of Zelda.
100% confuse people if we call it Legend of Link. We've got to keep with the brand name.
Remember the Wii U?
Yeah.
I bet every time they think of like a fun naming conventions, like they just like write Wii U on the wall. Like,
oh yeah.
That was a mistake.
And I'm very excited about that. That is coming out September 26th. And of course, like September 26th, I presume is like probably like a Friday. I'm gonna check now. I haven't checked this in advance, but September 26th is a Thursday, so I probably won't be streaming it on launch day. Maybe I will swap around Pokemon and Zelda streams for that, maybe. But I will be streaming like Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom from then. So, when that game comes out on Tuesdays, I will be streaming that, and I'm very, very excited. Because it's like,
Zelda game.
It basically looks like they're doing, like, the weird, innovative shit that they did in, like, Tears of the Kingdom, but the equivalent in 2D Zelda games, and I'm so excited.
Yeah.
A very, very happy day when I was like, oh, I guess, like, Nintendo Direct, Metroid might happen. Wait, what do you mean there's a new Zelda game starring Zelda coming out in 3 months? What the fuck is going on?
And presumably we're going to talk about Metroid in some fashion because I saw the thumbnail, and I'm going to get it right out of the way right now. I am not excited for Metroid Prime 4. Do you know why? I don't like Metroid Prime.
I'm very aware, and that is why I figured it would maybe be a fun discussion because, like, I am a person that's enjoyed Metroid Prime games. They're not my favorite Metroid games, but I enjoy them, and you don't, even though you're a big 2D Metroid fan.
I'm a massive Metroid fan. If anyone's wonder what my tattoo is, it's Metroid. Like, there's Ridley, there's like the Dodor and the Etacoons. So my entire sleeve is Metroid themed. I don't like Metroid Prime.
Oh,
And we can get into that. We can get into why.
the fake Metroid fan, and of course we are
I'm
just
not.
talking today about Metroid Prime. And yeah, I'm joking when I call you a fake Metroid fan. I very much see like the 2D games and Metroid Prime games as having very different reasons to appeal to people.
Well, it's like the Zelda series, isn't it? I'd say the top-down ones and the third-person ones. Very distinct, very different. And
They are.
would you say someone's not a Zelda fan for not liking the top-down ones or the third-person ones?
No,
Because no, they're different.
exactly. Yeah, definitely not.
The same series, but just different ways of interpreting it and mechanically allowing you to control it.
There is even a lot of people that don't enjoy Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom because they don't like the fact that it strayed away from the quote-unquote Zelda formula.
And it's like, it doesn't have dungeons.
They do, but they don't, and they're different, and I get it, and it's like...
Here's the thing, right? If they'd have called Joe the Great Plateau, when you're at like the opening mission,
yeah,
and then you go down to like Hyrule, if they called the Great Plateau the Great Dungeon, and down below the Dungeon of Hyrule, would people have shut the fuck up? Because it seemed like every time I read those criticisms and I look at what the dungeons used to look like, it's like, oh, you had these big sprawling places where you had to solve mysteries. When that's the entire game. The entire game is a dungeon.
And
is it just because it's literally not called a dungeon? That's the problem. I mean, they called the shrines like mini dungeon 1.
That's the thing, right? It's like there's shrines everywhere that are like every single shrine is a couple of rooms worth of a couple of rooms of a temple in the game. And like, to clarify, they have moved away, because I've noticed this playing Skyward Sword, is that every single like dungeon area in Skyward Sword, all of them are temples. Presumably because they don't like the association of like the dungeon being a bad word.
But I just find it baffling that there's no dungeons in that game. It's like the whole game. So I think if they just said, if they called Hyrule just the dungeon,
yeah, like,
or they called the shrines mini, would people have shut the fuck up?
Literally, it is an evolution from what they were doing in Skyward Sword, where they wanted all of the build up towards the temples to feel like they were also puzzly and part of the temples. And
the puzzle solving aspect of the temples is now just built into the core design of the world.
And I see like Breath of the Wild as an evolution and an innovation upon the idea. And literally some of it is just combat arenas or open fields and stuff, but like it really does personally baffle me, that criticism. But I also understand that some people are there for Zelda games to be a very specific flavor. Same with you with Metroid, and like when people don't get that taste of what exactly they want, it doesn't feel like that franchise to them.
That does confuse me with the Zelda thing, because the dungeons are just, you've got to solve a problem. The entire game is built around stuff. It's just now they no longer have the technological limitations. I want to put this shit into a big cube that you walk around. Now it's the entire world, and the freedom you have to approach the problems is now infinite. But it seems like people's complaint was that there's not one way to solve the problem of like, oh, there's no equivalent to like the water boots or the iron boots.
Yeah, the iron boots, yeah.
You have like 50 different solutions to each problem now. You have far more freedom to approach. Like, it's more of that.
It's just true.
There's not a guaranteed solution to the problem. Like,
it's, however, though, I could say the same for like, why don't you like Metroid Prime? Because the thing that like people come to Metroid for is exploring areas, getting like storytelling through, like contextual things within the universe, and then finding things to unlock, doors within the world and go back and unlock new things. Like Metroid Prime has those things.
Would you like to know what my? 'Cause I have an answer to that. That's not the appeal I get from the Metroid series. I enjoy it, but my primary appeal is the movement.
Mm.
The movement is so snappy. It's so clean. It's so satisfying. Mechanically, it feels so satisfying to land like a perfect wall jump or, charge up a beam and do like a perfect time wall jump and hit like an enemy with a well-placed missile.
Mm-hmm.
Like Joe, when you're in like playing through Dread and you sprint through the level and like you jump and you parry an enemy midair and then like back shot over your shoulder.
I mean, yeah, I totally know what you mean because I do like Metroid Prime, but I much prefer the 2D versions of the games because of, as you say, like that snappiness and that speed. And I haven't really had much experience with Metroid Zero Mission, but they also showed off that that was coming to like the Nintendo Switch Online, like,
Which is great.
emulation service. And
Very good, yes.
I didn't realize how fast Metroid Zero Mission looks.
She goes like Samus hauls so much, and that's why I don't like
Yeah.
the Metroid Prime games because they're very deliberate. And one of the things I said when I was watching that trailer is when Samus like when it goes to behind the shoulders, I was like, man, this game would be so good if it controlled like Doom.
Oh,
So I just
yeah.
and just it's just how slow. Like when it goes in. So when I think Samus, I think of her hauling the most amount of ass.
Mm-hmm.
She's literally got rockets in her shoulder so she can run faster. And I just saw like the gameplay of pew, 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 lazily straight. Pew. And I went, if this played like Doom and you use like her grappling hook as like the meat hook from the game,
Mm-hmm.
this game will be fucking awesome. And instead it's just pew,
Like,
pew. It's like, that's not Samus.
I
I don't like this slow, deliberate style of play.
yeah, we literally had this conversation in like our group chat offline, and like, I was like, I agree that like that would kick ass. Like, I would love Doom 2016, but it's Metroid. However, I do understand that Metroid Prime isn't that game.
It's not that game, no, but
But
again, I
man,
don't
it
like
would be
Metroid Prime.
fucking awesome if it was.
It's why Other M is really disappointing because from a story perspective, it sucks, but from mechanically, I really like how it's almost Resident Evil 4 esque. Of you have like you shoot people with like, and you get like a critical hit, and you get like cool finish animations.
I think that was the one thing that really sold me on Other M was those cool finisher animations, because it's the first time where like we finally in game in canon get to see like Samus doing all the crazy shit that I imagine she can do in my head, like
The crazy bullshit acrobatics, yes.
all the
And I was just
finishes
thinking,
and stuff. Yeah,
and I was just thinking, Joe, when I saw that it goes into her shoulder, I was just thinking, if she just grabs the enemy with the grapple beam and drags the enemy towards her and like Doom style,
it just
puts, like,
crunches the head or something.
not like that, not that violent, but like just like puts the arm cannon in the face and blows it away.
Fuck it, let Samus kill people.
She already does kill them, but just like not in that violent way.
Make it
And
happen.
I just thought, like, how good would that be? Of like, and then because okay, you won't be able to wall jumps; it look too weird. But you could have like Doom style, like double jumps, like just sprints. Do you like Doom guy when he sprints through an environment?
Mm-hmm.
And like the weapon switching on the fly, it would suit the mechanics so, and the exploration as well, because Doom Eternal and Doom 2016 have such good traversal and exploration mechanics.
And then, Carl, would you really like them to make it so that Samus has to use one specific weapon in one specific way to kill each enemy?
No, but I just thought, like, when I saw that, and I was like, I know that's not what Prime is, and that's why it's not for me. I enjoy the series. I enjoy the story. I watched all, I watched the cutscenes and stuff on YouTube, but just the gameplay, it doesn't feel. It's not what I go into that series for.
Mm-hmm. And like,
I like the character, I like the world.
I really like the environmental storytelling and just the exploration of Metroid Prime. But I do agree, the combat could be way better and the action could be way, way cooler. And I almost want like a third-person character action game out of Metroid at this point.
Or like over the shoulder, like Resident Evil 4.
Mm-hmm. Like, it would be so cool if we got a Metroid game that had like exploration and open worlds and stuff, but it played like a fucking Bayonetta game or a Devil May Cry game or something.
It just annoys me how slow Samus is.
Mm-hmm.
Because she doesn't move, even in like when she's got her base costume on in like Super Metroid. Even when she's like in Zero Mission, when she doesn't have the suit, she hauls so much ass.
Because
she's like the pinnacle of human achievement in terms of fitness and flexibility and acrobatic skill.
I understand why they did it, because ultimately the thing that people like differentiate. Like Metroid, they classify as, like Nintendo call it, a search action game, and they emphasized the search aspect of Metroid Prime. But like in Metroid Dread end game, where I've learned all the bosses and I'm doing like my 9th playthrough, and I'm untouchable Samus because I've learned all the enemy patterns and stuff. That game plays so well, and as you say, like Samus is hauling so much ass. She's untouchable. She's just such a cool action-based character by the end of it, and then you play Metroid Prime, and she's like slowly kind of drifting around, and she's got that floatiness to her, and
she doesn't jump. So I think if it played like Doom, because I think Doom's like movement and like there's a lot of exploration in there. Like Doom guy explores a lot of that world and fires a lot of cool weapons. Just like it's just I want to see Metroid Prime footage, and it's just like okay, how she doesn't even jump satisfying. She like
no, it's that weird floaty jump to make sure that
you always get there.
It works better for the first-person platforming in terms of knowing where you are. Like, there's most first-person platforming sucks, but Metroid Prime, you never really lose where your footing is.
Do you know what it feels like? It feels like a game from 20 years ago. Do you know when like they hadn't yet figured out like mantling or anything like in Halo, where you jump like 20 feet into the air? It's like, but we've figured out this problem.
Hopefully, you know, they incorporate elements of that. We've only seen literally like
we've only seen a little bit, yeah,
a tiny bit of probably the opening mission, right?
Yeah, but it just looked really funny when it's like how bombastic, like there's explosions and huge action set piece, pew, pew, and you can see like she's very slowly strafing around. It's like you move faster than this in Halo.
It still feels very much like it is, yeah, early Halo games kind of vibes, but again, if they can lean into the amazing like environments and story and soundtrack and everything that Metroid Prime was like known for and is good for, I still think it can make like a very good, unique experience. Like we've got enough first-person shooters that are action-based first-person shooters. Like I can go play plenty of Doom type games.
But just imagine.
Oh no, I'm totally sold on the idea. Don't get me wrong.
When I say that, you can picture everything, right? Instead of having like Doom Guy's dash, it's just like it's the screw attack.
Well, Samus has a dash.
Yeah, but because like you just give the screw attack for like a double jump.
Yeah, and like
instead of like the meat hook, you have like the grappling hook and like all that cool weapon switching stuff in Doom. It just switches from like ice beam, wave beam, plasma beam, super missiles.
Yep, I can totally
grenades,
see it working.
Bombs.
But we should probably get to talking about
a
little bit. Metroid Prime itself is a 2002 action-adventure game developed by Retro Studios and published by Nintendo for the GameCube. And, you know, it was one of the big kind of, not launch year, but launch kind of window-ish. It was one of the first big games to promote the GameCube and got, like, excellent reviews at the time. And it's surprising to me because even back when like Metroid Prime came out and I was 10 years old, like Samus was a character in Smash Bros. I'd heard so much about Metroid and how good it was. Metroid Prime is the 5th Metroid game.
Yeah.
That's kind of wild to me, even now thinking back. Like, yeah, Metroid Prime is Metroid, like, it's not Metroid 5. It's the 5th Metroid game. It says here, like, a bit later. It takes place between the original Metroid and Metroid 2. So everything that happens in Metroid Prime 2, Metroid Prime 3, Metroid Prime Hunters, Metroid Prime 4, that's all between Metroid 1 and 2.
Yep.
All of it in canon just takes place before Metroid 2, which is wild. And
she was a beat. It's no wonder she's like fucking done with the shit in it, Dread, right?
Yeah, like Metroid Dread is Metroid 4.
Like she's so done.
Like, it's Metroid, Metroid 2, Super Metroid, Metroid Dread.
And you know, I think it technically like Zero Mission. And
it's Metroid 5, right? Because Fusion
and Metroid Zero Mission.
Well, Zero Mission's a remake of 1.
Zero Mission, yeah. Oh yeah, sorry, right. And then Other M's canon. They reference Other M. Annoyingly, they do.
I think it comes up though that I think the start of Dread is saying that it's Metroid 5, right?
It is 5, but like, you know, all the other stuff has happened.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, Metroid Prime is the fifth main Metroid game and the first to use 3D computer graphics and a first-person perspective. Released in North America in November 2002 and in Japan and Europe the following year.
Yeah, right.
And it did release, it doesn't say whether it released. So when did Metroid Fusion come out? Because it released with Metroid Fusion, but it doesn't say in which territory. Metroid Fusion came out in November 2002 in everything but Japan, where it came out in February 2003.
So, Joe, the other thing as well that gets me.
Hmm.
I know it's a minor thing, but it's that it's first person, and Samus's design is so fucking cool.
Yeah.
She has such a cool design, and you never see it.
The one thing I do say that like kind of makes up for that a little bit is how cool it is to see all the visor effects.
The visor effects are cool, and I do like that the scan of you get to see how a gun works because it's never been explained in the 2D games how a gun works, but if you scan it in one of the Prime games, you see her hands move, and she makes
she's
like
moving it within the cannon to make different things happen in the cannon.
So the way Samus's arm cannon works is like, oh, how does she make it go to missiles? It's like she just like makes like a different hand signal and it goes to missiles. I like that,
and I love the fact that you get to occasionally see like the reflection of Samus's face come up in the visor.
Every now and again,
when you go through like rain's dropping through the visor on your screen, like
it's one of those few games where you actually feel like you are the character. It's like when you play like Halo games, you get the overlay of all the shit is. Oh, here's your heads-up display, but you don't feel like you're looking through Master Chief's eyes.
No, you don't. Whereas you do actually with those just few little extra gimmicks, you feel as though you are in Samus's helmet and you are viewing through her eyes, through her visor.
And there is a lot of care taken to like, make the universe feel lived in. That's why I guess it's not as fast because they want you to take it slow. They want you to explore and experience the world.
They want you to go around and scan everything, yeah.
I just wish she moved a bit faster.
I do, and like it's also a shame that it's hard to make like the speed booster work in first person.
It doesn't. No, it's a shame.
Even though like
it's the most iconic
Destiny
ability.
managed to make that shit work. You can get amplified and run faster, and speed booster works. But
you put a sprint in a game. Like games have sprint.
Oh yeah, but like not speed booster sprint. Like the sprinting in Metroid, and then the speed boosting in Metroid.
I reckon in Titanfall. I reckon when you use like the stim in Titanfall and you jump from wall to wall. I reckon that's about as fast as Samus moves in those 2D. Obviously, in canon, she's moving like 1,000 miles an hour. But gameplay, she's moving like 3 times as fast. I reckon with like the sprint mechanics in some games, you're moving like upwards of 3 or 4 times your base movement speed.
I would argue you could put that
into a Metroid game.
More than likely, Carl, what it is that you are probably moving about 1 times 3 faster, and the visual effects make it feel a lot faster. I remember we were talking about this in
Is
Mass Effect Mondays.
Is this a 2D game, do you think?
No, the 3D game. Like,
okay.
Speaking of like Titanfall, for example, like when you're playing a game, a lot of like the feeling of going faster isn't going faster. It's
that's obviously right.
As say in Mass Effect 1, apparently like your running speed in the Citadel is the exact same as your walking speed. But because you're doing a running animation and they make the camera zoom out a little bit, it feels faster.
But I know you move faster in Titanfall because I get across the map in 2 seconds.
You definitely move faster, but I don't think
maybe not as fast as I'm thinking you move. Yes.
Yeah, that's the thing is like I think mentally you think like, oh man, I'm moving like triple speed. But you're probably moving like 1.5 times speed. But they do such a good job of selling it to you with all these different visual effects and stuff that you're probably not moving anywhere near as fast as you think you are.
Which just goes to show they could put it into a Metroid game.
As I say, Destiny literally has a speed booster mechanic, and it works, and it feels good.
And they could give you like the visual effects of like instead of having like the field of view shift, you could just have the blur, like the blue blur when she enters a speedboat. Then you could have like a super jump or something like that to replicate the flying.
Yeah, and like it would definitely be a different game, and I get that, but yeah, it would feel really nice if they managed to do that. But
it's just in my head. I'm picturing Joe and you're like flying around a map in Titanfall with the grappling hook.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just thinking, imagine if that was like Samus's grapple hook, and you like fling yourself like 100 feet into the air, and like
That's the thing. We
instead
know
of
it
like
could work because there's games like Titanfalls that exist. Like there's Doom, there's Titanfall. We know Metroid Prime could technically play like that, and it would be so good.
and they have just as much exploration. Like there's just as like, in Doom, there's just as much exploration. Like some of those maps are like 5 stories tall. And there's like
Obviously, the
100 different
level
secrets.
design is very different because, like,
Yeah, it's
it's a
different beast.
linear level. It's not something you keep coming back to with different abilities, but that doesn't mean that the game couldn't play that way.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. Like I said, when I think of Samus, I don't. The primary thing I'd use to describe her and her character is not exploration; it's speed. It's the responsiveness of those games that drew me to the series in a mechanic sense, not the fact that you get to wander around a world. Because 90% of people who replay those games over and over again don't replay them to explore more; they replay them to complete them faster.
Yeah.
There's a reason it's the #1 speedrunning game.
I mean, Carl knows that, like, when Metroid Dread came out, it was pretty much routine for me to just complete Metroid Dread again on the train up or back from Sheffield and just be like,
Yep.
oh yeah, I did it in like an hour and a half this time.
It's like, were you replaying that game to explore more of the world, or are you replaying it to maximize your speed and your ability to traverse the game, master the mechanics?
Exactly. And I was also redoing Dread specifically because it was really fun to sequence break because they planned some bosses to be sequence broken.
So cool.
Which was cool as fuck when there's like an actual inbuilt cutscene for you going and getting the morph ball and bombs early to then have like a unique way of killing Kraid with those abilities that you're not meant to have yet, and then a cutscene plays after you kill it that way that's unique to killing it with the morph ball, and it's like I love that shit. Not only do you let me sequence break and get those abilities early to make the fight easier, you like let it happen, take it into account, and put extra cutscenes in that are like secret little nods.
To acknowledge the fact that players are going to do this. That's the thing, like they know that players are going to do that. I mean, it's an established part of like Metroid's gameplay loop.
Yeah. Like how
I'm not saying
times...
these are bad games. That's the thing. If anyone's a fan of it, I'm not saying they're bad. I'm saying this is why I personally they don't gel with me.
Yeah. And I'm on that midpoint where I'm like, I like Metroid Prime, but my preferred Metroid games are like Metroid Dread and Super Metroid. Like they're my two favorites, and maybe Zero Mission after seeing how fucking fast that game plays.
Yeah.
I really want to go and try that out now.
Yeah, I'll play Metroid Prime 4 because that's the thing about Metroid Prime as well. Like when I had a GameCube, I couldn't afford many games, and the Prime games were always full price. They never went down in price, and I never had a Wii U, and that's the only place you could have got that collection, right?
Metroid
like
Prime
the collection of 1, 2, and 3.
Trilogy came out on Wii, and then they also eventually brought it to the Wii U eShop, I think.
And that's the thing, yeah, I never had a Wii. I didn't have a Wii U. The eShop's dead. I couldn't afford, and that's the thing, I've never played, all my plays of, like, the handful of times I've been at friend's house, and it just didn't gel with me. And then, just, as I said, I watched all the cutscenes because I wanted to know the story.
And shout out to, like, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond, which is now scheduled for 2025. And shout out to the wiki for already having that note in here a day later.
Was on 5 seconds after it went on.
Yeah, exactly. The wiki editors are on it, but the balls to be like, hey, do you remember Psylux, I think it was? Who's a bounty hunter from Metroid Prime Hunters, and apparently is like in 5 seconds of Metroid Prime 3's end credits.
I'll tell you what, the one I did play is the one that was on the DS.
That was Hunters, yeah.
Was that Hunters? I played that one, and that was actually really snappy, because for some reason you could control, like, it was really fun, you could control your thumb, right?
You controlled it on the touchscreen. Your first-person shooter aiming was on the touchscreen, yeah.
I'll tell you what, I played that one, and that one was fun. But I think that's because it was handheld, and it was the novelty.
Yeah, probably.
The novelty of playing it in handheld. But if I played it on a big screen, I'd want, like, this is too slow. But on a handheld, you wanted it to be slow, right? You didn't want to move too fast because you couldn't. So I do like Hunters.
Just the balls of them to be like, do you remember that Metroid Prime Hunters game that nobody played?
Like Goober. I played it.
That, like, not many people played it in comparison to the other Metroid Prime games. It was 20 years ago. There was one of like I think like 5 or 6 like disposable like bounty hunters with no faces.
But I say, would you
And
wait 1 minute?
yeah, go ahead. Like I'll keep
Wait,
talking while you
wait
run.
1 minute.
But like just the idea to take all of that and be like, remember that Psylux guy. We're definitely gonna make him like presumably the antagonist of Metroid Prime 4. With like coming in with a couple of Metroids like hovering around him on each shoulder, and it's like, oh, Carl's got the Metroid Prime Hunters right there.
Because I like when I moved into this place, I was like digging up all my old stuff. Like I went to my mum's house and got all my old stuff, and there's like my old BS with my copy of Hunters.
Nice. Yeah, I was just saying like the balls for them to bring back Psylux with like the Metroid sitting over the shoulders and like, oh yeah, this is like the bad guy to worry about in Metroid Prime 4 20 years later.
So this is one of the reasons it was really cool. You ready? So 6 new bounty hunters. Each new hunter has unique abilities to take on friends and rivals. And because it was, remember the DS let you do that cool thing?
DS download play.
Yes. So me and my brother could play it in the car.
Mm-hmm.
Because DS download play was what, Lucas?
It was
really cool feature.
One person owned the car. That means that depending on the game, you could have some level of like wirelessly downloading a portion of the game from your friend or family member's DS. Like, you could literally play the multiplayer of Metroid Prime Hunters with one cartridge, and I think 4 players could play it that way.
It says here, yeah, wireless DS, single card download play, up to 4 players. The same for multiplayer. Same for like Mario Kart. You could
Mario
have one
Kart,
cart,
you could do, I think
players.
it was like 8 or 12 people could all play one. Like, you know, it was limited, like you'd only play Shy Guy, but you could have like 8 or 12 people playing Mario Kart DS, all based off one cart. I think it was 8 people, but I might be wrong.
But that's like, one of the things that just Nintendo did that was fantastic, right? But yeah, that's one of the reasons why I love playing it. Because me and my brother would play the Bounty Hunter mode. And I've just got a story here. An advanced race, now extinct, has left behind relics of its once powerful warrior culture. Now, bounty hunters from across the galaxy race to claim these relics in hopes of harnessing their power for themselves. And that's why Samus goes in. Because she's like, well, I don't want to use them, but there's because that's one of the things about the Metroid series that never really gets explored. Of, hey, Samus Aran's a bounty hunter, but she's not the only one. Do you know, in like Star Wars, where like Boba Fett turns up with like the 8 other guys? And it's like,
they have like the hit squad of like 5 different bounty hunters or something, and Boba Fett's the only one who gets any like actual screen time past that. But yeah, there are all the bounty hunters there,
and that's what this game explores. Like, you know, like when they don't want to hire Samus because she's too expensive, they get these other fucking goobers in, and they all hate Samus because obviously she's the most famous one because she always gets called in when there's a real big problem, and they've all got a chip on their shoulder and something to prove, and they're all like just trying to fuck you over the entire game.
And presumably this was like by the point where Nintendo actually knew what the word bounty hunter meant.
Yes.
Because famously they made both Captain Falcon and Samus Aran bounty hunters when they essentially thought that meant cool adventurer, not realizing it meant like person for hire that's essentially a mercenary.
So essentially, yeah. And that's one of the things I love about Samus is that, does she ever get paid? Because I think I've never, like, I don't ever recall her ever being paid for anything she's ever done.
Yeah, it's
like she just does it.
She just goes and rescues planets to help out, and again, space adventurer with like no need for income. Not really a bounty hunter, but at some point they did lean into the fact that, oh yeah, we understand what a bounty hunter is now.
Here's the thing though, how much fucking money do you think you can charge when the planet is a threat at stake? So do you know, like when it's about, oh, can you go get like a bounty hunter, like rescue my kid? Rescue my kid from like these like kidnappers.
Can you go and kill one person for me?
Yeah. What do you think it is where it's like our entire planet is going to explode? Like how much do you think you can charge? Do you think Samus is just there like, yes.
And that's the thing, right? Is like that's the antithesis of like what a bounty hunter is a person who literally finds bounties on people's heads and goes killing them for rewards, whereas like getting paid to save a planet is like what being a being a mercenary, being a contract like hero for hire. Like it's the
Well,
opposite of a bounty hunter.
But here's the thing as well. It's a hell of a negotiation tactic, right?
Well, if you don't hire me, your planet is going to explode in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Most of the time, it explodes anyway when Samus's up there.
So can you fix it in 5 minutes? Yeah. I could fix. You know what? I could fix it in less than 50. That's the current world record for like Super Metroid right now, right?
I don't know.
Do it in less than 50.
It's definitely less than an
hour. As long as you don't want all the bosses killed. Like I can't kill that giant fucking big seed. I won't get that. But if Ridley's on your planet, I'll make sure he's dead.
But I'll also make sure the planet explodes at the end because that does happen in most.
That's never her fault though. It's always Ridley that.
Like nearly every single Metroid game ends with like, yeah, we stopped the Metroids, but also the planet exploded.
So I wonder how much like the bounty on. Because you think if like you're told like, oh, okay, I'm gonna hire Samus, and it's like, okay, so this is my fee. It's like, so well, what's the problem? It's like, oh, my son was kidnapped by Ridley. No charge. No charge. No, it's like fucking Ridley again.
Yeah, no charge because she wouldn't do it because she's too scared of Ridley, right?
I just imagine as well, like she just kicks the door down.
Like
she's not scared of Ridley now.
Everyone remember that she's scared of Ridley because of Metroid Prime Metroid
Other M shit, yeah. I hate that. I hate it so much.
I know.
She's killed him 5 times.
Yeah, literally.
She killed him as a robot. He's way scary as a robot, and she killed him then. She killed him when he had time powers.
He had time powers?
Well, something does. One of the games is like a monster that controls time and gravity, and she kills that thing.
Oh.
She's not scared of that shit.
Yeah, just, talking about, like, kind of the development aspect of Metroid Prime here, it, of course, was a collaboration between Retro Studios, which in Austin, Texas, and obviously, Japanese Nintendo employees, including Miyamoto and Kensuke Tanabe. And yeah, like, it's one of those weird things where Nintendo generally keeps things pretty in-house, but
yeah,
they let an American developer produce, like, their flagship Metroid series, and still continues now. Like, I can't remember who exactly was working on Metroid Prime 4 for a couple of years, but then they rebooted it and gave the series back to Retro.
Wasn't it? Yeah, like they had that sucks, right? Because I think Miyamoto came out and said we looked at what they made and it sucked.
They had to literally put out a video. I can't remember whether it was like Iwata at the time or like Miyamoto or someone, but someone came out and was like, "We know we announced Metroid Prime 2 years ago, but like, yeah, we see where that game was going and like restarted development entirely, and it's been given back to Retro because it was not going well.
Shit sucked.
Yeah, so like in 2019,
the balls to do it though.
Yeah, like 100%. It's like so many games go through development hell without any communication, or like look, for example, we don't know what's going on and haven't heard for a while about like Hollow Knight Silk Song is a good example. Of like,
you know what, at that point, those fans have done themselves dirty because
the
more they build it up, the less likely it's going to happen. Because I gather every time the developers are like, well, how are we ever going to match these expectations?
Mm-hmm. And it's gone to the point where seemingly they aren't releasing it because they keep adding more and more to it to make sure that it lives up to expectations, which then means that they take longer to develop the game, which then means that people have higher expectations because it's been in development for longer, which then makes them presumably want to develop the game for longer to add even more to meet the expectations. And yeah, so it seems like it's been a vicious cycle of just wanting to make that game better and better. And, it's one of those things where just at some point you need to just let it come out.
Just, just go do something else. It's like a watch pot. It's not going to boil while you watch it.
Yeah, exactly. Stop tweeting about it. The moment where, like, nobody tweets about Hollow Knight Silk Song when a Nintendo Direct happens, that's when it'll come out.
That must be the annoying thing as well, right? Of just, like, it's not that. So I remember when Smash Bros was like, every time it's like, we're not talking about Smash Bros in this Direct. This is about other things. People would bitch at Nintendo, like, why was there no Smash Bros announced?
Yeah.
Like, we told you there wasn't.
Like,
how have you not got enough Smash Bros right now?
People talking about like the last Nintendo Direct of like, Yeah, but it's a shame that he didn't really say anything about like if the new Switch is coming out. It's like, they said multiple times we've got a direct coming up that's not going to talk about that.
The Switch 2.
Yeah. Or the Super Switch, hopefully.
I hope they call it a Super Switch.
Mm-hmm.
If they did, I'd be really happy. Just because, like, nostalgia.
Yeah, like it wouldn't be as confusing as the Wii U was, that's for sure.
Yeah, it'll be Switch 2.
It will be Switch 2, which is just boring and it makes sense. But guess what?
It makes investors happy.
The PlayStation 2 is clearly the sequel to the PlayStation, and the PlayStation 3 is clearly the sequel to the PlayStation 2. And the Wii U was not clearly a sequel to the Wii.
No. I said they should call it the Super Wii. If they've already got that naming convention, Nintendo Entertainment, the Super Nintendo Entertainment System. Call it the Super Switch.
It like Metroid Prime 4 has been confirmed as like being a Switch game, but it really wouldn't surprise me if it's like, hey, it's gonna be a better version on the Switch too.
Same thing, yeah.
But like
it looks fun.
It looks cool, and
I said it looks fun in the sense of like it's not my cup of tea, but it looks fun.
Yeah, and it looks exactly like Metroid Prime, which is exactly what Metroid Prime fans have been waiting for.
Hey, it's fans of Hunters, mate. We get to see my boy. The goobers from this might turn up.
Yeah,
and as well because it's actually going to be a handheld game. Now I think about it, the Switch is handheld.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it'll like gel with me a bit more because I said the few times I played Prime and watched Prime being played, I always thought like a big TV. It just didn't look fun. Maybe on a handheld, it'll make more sense. Maybe it'll click.
It does actually as well say here that like since exploration takes precedence over combat, Nintendo actually described the game as a first-person adventure rather than a first-person shooter, and that's probably why people like yourself probably have like mismatched expectations of like.
Is it mismatched expectations? The main character has a gun for a hand.
But that's not the point of the game, right?
And what's the thing that's always on screen is a gun.
But that's where, like, that's why I'm saying that, like, that's why I'm trying to use the words, like, mismatch expectations of, like, you see a gun on screen and expect an FPS, whereas Nintendo and Retro wanted to make a first-person adventure game that just so happens to have a gun in it.
Like, the character has a gun for a hand.
And, like, I'm not against the idea of it playing, like, a better first-person shooter does. I would love that, but that isn't what Metroid Prime is, and at this point, it would do a disservice to the 4 other games.
The legacy of the brand, yeah. Here's the thing, maybe not even a first-person shooter. Mirror's Edge. Make it like Mirror's Edge.
And,
that has minimal combat. Minimal combat in Mirror's Edge. It's all about exploration. Like I say, Samus's gun doesn't fucking work. She's got to explore and like go through the world. Done.
I am very excited to like play Metroid Prime 4, and I should go. It's a shame that like they haven't announced, even if it was just re-releases of Metroid Prime 2 and 3, not necessarily like the Metroid Prime remaster that was really good. Like, I don't need that, but just like let me play all 3 games very easily on my Switch.
I can't play it right now if I wanted to. Yeah, if I wanted to, I couldn't.
Like, Metroid Prime remaster looks graphically amazing considering it's technically a remaster of a GameCube game. Like, I want to replay it through that at some point and like before Metroid Prime 4 comes out, but it'd be cool if at very least we got the trilogy, not necessarily like a DS game's a bit harder to port, so I understand why they don't put Hunters on there, but it'd be nice to have the trilogy on there before like Metroid Prime 4 came out.
Now here's some stuff that confuses me as well. Like, it's like it makes sense to the companies making them, but it baffles me that they can make sequels to games on consoles where you can't play the previous games. Like, I remember saying this about God of War 2018, where God of War 2018 is like technically God of War 5, if not 7.
Well, I think God of War 7 or 8, right? Like
then 3 PSP games, and then there's Ascension. It's like technically it's God of War 8. You can't play the previous 8 games in the franchise on that console.
I think the only one you can play is like God of War 3 HD, right?
Yeah, 1, 2, and 3 HD. And I think you play 1 and 2
it's
on
just
the
3
compatible.
I don't even think it's
2 on the
1 and 2.
But either way, the fact that you can't play the previous games in that series.
I think it is now 1 and 2, by the way. I think like when 2018 came out, it was just 3 though.
Yeah. I know it doesn't bother a lot of people, just for something about the fact they're releasing a game called Number 4, and if you can't go in fresh to Number 4.
Literally got 4 prequels to this game, and you can't play any of them apart from one. Like, you can literally play Metroid Prime, take a gap of 3 games worth of narrative, and then play Metroid Prime 4.
I'm hoping they do what they do in Dread, and what they do in like games like Devil May Cry, where it's like, here's just a recap of shit that happened before this game.
Mm-hmm.
And doing like in Dread, they have like, here's what you can look at the back, and it's just like some nice key art of here's Metroid 1, here's Metroid 2, here's like, Super.
Yeah.
Here's, unfortunately, Other M.
Ugh. It didn't happen.
It's like, it happens in Devil May Cry as well. When they talk about Devil May Cry, in Devil May Cry 5, when you look at the previous on Devil May Cry, they do mention Devil May Cry 2.
Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say they mentioned DMC, and I was like, wait, what?
No, they mention Devil May Cry 2, but they mention it for like one panel, and they very quickly move away.
Yeah, just moving on.
It's canon, but we're not going to talk about it.
Yeah, that's definitely where Other M should stay. It's just like, yeah, we know it's there, moving on. But it just on an end note here, Carl, it does say that
Yes,
Metroid Prime sold more than 2.8 million copies worldwide, which, considering the GameCube sold like 21 million copies, like that.
It's good in terms of a GameCube.
Good in terms of a GameCube, like it's more than like 10% of GameCube players bought it, which
is good.
It's pretty good.
Install base.
Metroid Dread is the best-selling Metroid game ever, and it sold like 3-point-something million on the Switch, which is like 140 million consoles sold. So,
it might be the best reviewed and best loved and critically lauded series that just doesn't sell.
Yes, yeah. Probably is, because Metroid Prime is regarded, as it says here, among like one of the greatest games of all time, remaining one of the highest rated games of all time on Metacritic. And I'm going to go to Metacritic now and actually see how many games down the list Metroid Prime is, because it's not far. It's not far down that list at all.
I will have to give this a review, because I said I was a dumb teenager when these games came out.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't afford them, and then as an adult, there's just not been the opportunity to go back and explore. So if you got these anywhere?
I have Metroid Prime Trilogy on the Wii U.
So that means we could technically play. I could find a way to play these games.
Yeah, I could.
Could I borrow your Wii U at some point?
I could quite easily lend you my Wii U, and you could go through the entire trilogy. Yeah.
So next time you're knocking about, let's do this, because you know what? Maybe I'll think differently about them, because like I said, I'm going in there to mismatch expectations. I really like the way you've worded that.
Mm-hmm.
If I reset my expectations and go in with the mindset of like, okay, this is not the game that you'd want, but this is the game they want. This is the experience they crafted, and it's a very well crafted experience to enjoy.
Yeah, like I could easily make that happen for you. And Metroid Prime 1, as far as I'm aware, like the best thing to do is just get the remaster on Switch, because apparently it's really fucking good.
Mm-hmm.
But if you wanted to play 2 and 3, I could quite easily lend you my Wii U, and you could play them that way, which is presumably the best way to play those games available. So
like I said, I started this podcast like I don't like them, but that's because my expectations is maybe if I go into it as like, okay, this is I'm taking the opportunity to learn more about Samus. This is a character I really do like.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see it from that point of view. Let's see it as like, I like Resident Evil games. Maybe it's like I'll look at it like that, of like, hey, Resident Evil, like 1, 2, and 3, and Code Veronica were great. Then 4 came out. Yeah, and that was different, and I gave that a chance. I like that. So,
and interestingly here, Carl, I have up the highest rated games of all time, and I always like to bring it up.
It's number one.
Number 1, Zelda Ocarina of Time.
Yes,
the only game on Metacritic. The only game on Metacritic with a 99 out of 100.
Yeah, let's see if I can guess these. So, number 1, always Ocarina of Time. Number 2, is it Super Mario World?
No, it is Soul Calibur.
Is it a Super Mario game? Soul Calibur?
Soul Calibur.
I guess because Soul Calibur is really fucking good.
Soul Calibur, the 1999 first Soul Calibur, is one of 2 games with a 98 Metascore on Metacritic. Can you guess the other one?
It's like Soul Calibur is real fucking good.
It is.
Is it a Mario game?
No, it's very, very different from a Mario game.
Okay, give me a clue. Give me the console.
It is M-rated.
Is it not a
Um,
console?
no, like I'm saying, it's very mature. Or it's maybe not mature, but it's mature rated. The console is the version that is number 3 on the list is the 360 version, but it was on PC and PS3.
Grand Theft Auto 4.
It is Grand Theft Auto 4, yeah.
Grand Theft Auto 4. Okay, then number 3, go on.
Number 4 and 5 are
With
both
97?
Wii games that are
Both we.
prequel and sequel to one another.
Is it Super Mario Sunshine?
Not Sunshine.
Galaxy and Galaxy 2.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Let's see how far we can go down. Okay.
See how
This is a
far
fun
we can
game.
go. And then number 6 is a Switch game.
Switch game. Breath of the Wild.
Breath of the Wild, indeed. Number 7 is a game maybe you would never expect.
Okay, so console.
Console is listed here as PlayStation 2. I believe it's also on like GameCube, Xbox, PC, a million other things under the sun. Maybe PlayStation 1.
Portal or Portal 2.
No, PS2.
Oh, PS2. Sorry. Half-Life then.
No. Sports game.
Oh, sports game. Then it's going to be. For the fuck's sake. It's like Madden.
Nope, maybe not
It's
the
not
type
Madden.
of sports you're thinking of.
Oh, Tony Hawk's. Duh.
Tony Hawk's
Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3.
Pro Skater 3.
It's 3, yeah. Because I was thinking, yep, number 3. Okay.
Number 8, very surprisingly, is a game that just got announced for Nintendo Switch Online.
Oh, Switch Online. That'll be Donkey Kong Country.
No, it's one of the 2 N64 games that got released yesterday.
Perfect Dark.
Perfect Dark. Number 8
I'm
of
good at
the
this.
all-time games.
Well, but I think Perfect Dark's really good.
I didn't
Perfect
realize
Dark,
it was
I think-
rated that highly.
Well, Perfect Dark is superior to GoldenEye. Because
In
GoldenEye,
terms of just like pure
sucks.
gameplay, yeah.
in terms of mechanically, but it's held up as like, oh, it's the invented the first person. It didn't. It invented the multiplayer shooter. It didn't. Quake did.
Yeah,
But it's the first
of
one that
course.
got big.
And the first console one that got big as
Yeah.
well.
But Perfect Dark refined that formula to a mirror fucking sheen.
Mm-hmm. Like, I knew it was a great game. Didn't realize it was number 8 in the highest rated games of all time. Great.
It was like Soul Calibur, isn't it? Like, can you say a bad thing about that original Soul Calibur game?
Exactly,
Hell no.
yeah. And
So what we got?
2 games that I could say something bad about, but are extremely popular and very well rated.
These
Coming up
this
at
is number
9 and 10.
Console.
Both on. Oh, actually, number 9. It's on PS4 and Xbox One, and then got like upgrade versions. Number 10. I'm lumping these together for a reason. Released initially on PS3, 360, then went to PS4, Xbox One, then went to Series X and PlayStation 5.
So it's not Last of Us then.
No.
So cross console.
And again, there is a reason I'm lumping number 9 and 10 together.
Are they sequels to one another?
No, but they're the same developer.
Same developer. Can you get another clue? Go on.
They're both very mature rated games. One has a sequel that is going to be like the biggest game ever.
Oh, it's Grand Theft Auto 5?
Number 10 is Grand Theft Auto 5. And can you guess
Really?
what number 9 is?
Red Dead 2.
Red Dead 2, yeah.
No, Grand Theft Auto 5?
Yeah.
4 is better than 5. Come at me. 4's got a better story.
4 has a better story. I prefer the gameplay mechanics of 5, but yeah.
Yeah, Nico's a better character.
Mm-hmm. And then, number 11, Carl.
Clue? Go on. Console.
We've just been talking about it.
Well, you need to tell me.
No,
We've
we've
talked
just
about
been
all of them.
talking about it.
It's Metroid Prime.
It's Metroid Prime, number
Metroid
11.
Prime's number 11 then. Oh, squeaking in at number 11.
Squeaking in there. And then GTA 3 after that at number 12.
I was going to say, I thought GTA 3 would be above 5 because Grand Theft Auto 3 was like
Mhm.
literally medium changing. Like Grand
So
Theft Auto 4 was massive, and like that's one of the first games I remember being advertised. It was Grand Theft Auto 4 and Halo 3. I remember those things being advertised on TV. Like
yeah.
Halo 3 had like adverts on TV, and Grand Theft Auto 4 had like a billboard in Times Square. But 3 was medium annihilating because like every game tried to be Grand Theft Auto 3 after Grand Theft Auto 3 came out, and then San Andreas took the formula and just went hog
Yeah, I'm
wild with
kind
it.
of surprised that like San Andreas isn't
Higher than
in
5.
one of the top few GTA rated games.
Yeah, I will put San Andreas above 5, and I will put 3 in terms of its importance and the impacts on the industry above 4.
And bear in mind, like, a lot of these games are similar score. They must have some way of ranking them, but like Ocarina of Time's the only 99. 98 are Soul Calibur and GTA 4. Then from number 4 all the way to number 15 are all rated 97 by Metacritic. Or
It's number of
aggregated.
reviews, right? Yeah.
I presume the higher number of reviews with the higher score would put you higher because you're more likely to get dragged down by like one knobhead.
Yeah, and I feel like as well, Ocarina of Time will never be beaten because it was made at a time where there was what, like 5 game magazines reviewing things. You didn't have like the New York Times wasn't reviewing shit. The Metro wasn't reviewing stuff. You didn't have like fucking knobheads on YouTube who were big enough to get counted in critics.
That's the thing, right? If I look at like Zelda Ocarina of Time, 22 critic reviews. Zelda Breath of the Wild at 6 is based on 117 reviews.
Exactly, yeah. Just
so,
by
like,
law of averages.
One person out of that 117 giving it like a 3 out of 10 immediately takes it out of the running.
Immediately, yeah. Well, I think Jim Sterling probably like drop that off by giving that shit review because I'm imagining they count because their personality now counts.
Obviously, like I believe they refer to themselves now as Stephanie Sterling, not to disparage them in that way.
They did a shit review,
but like the fact that they not only gave both of those Zelda games a shit review, but brag about it to this day is the thing that's like more annoying. It's like, okay, I get it. You didn't like Breath of the Wild. You don't need to be the person that hates Breath of the Wild. That doesn't need to be your personality.
I imagine as well that, like I said, just because they're a notable enough person in the industry, like I said, 120 reviews count towards that score. Whereas with like Ocarina of Time, there's 22. There was only like, I think as well that shows the growth of the industry, right? Where it's like 6 times as many people reviewed the game.
Yeah,
like 6 times as many like outlets,
critics
have
influence over that Metascore, yeah. And like it is interesting. Like so, 4 to 15, all 97 Metascore of like Mario Galaxy, Mario Galaxy 2, Breath of the Wild, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3, Perfect Dark, Red Dead 2, GTA 5, Metroid Prime, GTA 3, Super Mario Odyssey, Halo Combat Evolved, and NFL 2K1.
I know there was like, that's why I said NFL, because I know there was like one
There's
NFL
that
game.
One sneaky NFL game that was like just absolutely loud. Again, 22 critics reviewed it.
Yeah. But there's that, I know there is like one Madden or NFL game that everyone says is like, it's, do you know, like, there's that one FIFA game that everyone holds up as like being the best FIFA game.
Yeah.
It's the same thing for Madden. There's like apparently just one Madden game where they fucking nailed the formula. It's like wrestling games. It's like wrestling games are generally like shit now because they're like, but there's those back in the day. There was like that run of like SmackDown versus Raw and Here Comes the Pain and like the No Mercy.
Yeah,
where just wrestling games were peak.
And yeah, Metroid Prime number 11, but Metroid. I was about to say Metroid isn't in the top 50. I was just scrolling through after
Super
that.
Metroid is right.
No, Metroid is not in the top 50 after Metroid Prime. It's the only one in the top 50.
Super Metroid.
Maybe Super Metroid's too old to be on Metacritic though.
Maybe.
Because they only have like games going back to a certain degree. So I think Super Nintendo games are not included in Metacritic.
That's fair. It's wild though, right? Like, yeah, I said just. And we'll never get a game. No, that position will never be topped. Ocarina of Time will have that position forever.
And funnily enough, the other Metroid game that comes up when I'm scrolling through the list is at 58, Metroid Prime Remastered.
And I think that shows as well, doesn't it? Like, there's so many more reviewers. Like, by all accounts, Metroid Prime Remastered is the same game, but better in every single way.
It's just
it
a
reviews-
much prettier version of the exact same game, yes.
And it doesn't review as highly, despite that, because there's more people, which means there's more people who gave it a bad review. Like presumably, if I was one of the people who reviewed that game, I would have brought that score down.
Yeah.
I would have been the Sterling.
I think a
of
good
Metroid.
example, actually, as I scroll through, is almost universally agreed upon that Soul Calibur 2 perfected what Soul Calibur did.
Soul Calibur 2 is superior to 1.
Almost everyone I've ever heard speak
Soul
about
Calibur
Soul
2 is the one,
Calibur
yeah. It's
is
the one
like
that got remastered.
Soul Calibur 2 is better than Soul Calibur 1.
Specifically
It is
the game,
the game, and it's down at 111, whereas Soul Calibur 1 is at number 2.
Because that was on the PS1. And there's less people reviewing games than the PS1 was about.
I think
like
it's the
PS1.
Dreamcast version specifically,
Even
but
then,
yeah, either way, there's not many people reviewing Soul Calibur back in the day, so it's a very good game. Yeah, 24 critics.
I think it's harder to, it's easier to get a high average. Same with like films, isn't it? It's why like Citizen Kane and stuff like that is really highly reviewed, because like there's you only got contemporary reviews where there was like 5 newspapers that reviewed things.
Yeah.
So it's almost impossible to top it, because if there was a movie that came out and like, the 6 people whose reviews mattered said it's good, it's now universally good.
Yeah.
You need like a Dark Knight or something to top it.
Yeah, totally. And, Cromgeek in chat says, like, might be alone on this, but kind of invalidates Metacritic even further for me. And it's like, this is why Carl and I both quite often disparage the idea that, like, Rotten Tomatoes or Metacritic is the all-important thing. Is like, it's interesting to look at and makes for a fun discussion.
Yeah, it's a useful tool to gauge the general public opinion, either at the time or historically. But it's not the be-all and end-all.
There's one of those, one snotty reviewer can ruin the average Metacritic for a game, just as like a salty viewer base can ruin like the fucking review score for the Star Wars The Acolyte.
It's like, you know what? The reviews though will never be as worthless as audience reviews.
Yeah, exactly. And
nothing will ever be more worthless than them.
Very, very funny that like Star Wars The Acolyte getting review bombed for like, being woke or having women in it or whatever the fuck it's.
Lucas is a black person in Star Wars.
Yeah, whatever the fuck people are mad about it for
Lucas, I am so mad. I am so mad that there is a black person in Star Wars. I am going to make this my entire life.
Entire personality. Of course we are joking, but like, not only are those people dumb enough to think like we should go review bomb Star Wars The Acolyte, they've also inadvertently review bombed 2 other projects that have Acolyte in their title on IMDb from like
which I think
20 years ago, which sums it up, doesn't it?
As if they're like, it wasn't obvious that their opinion literally does not matter because they lack the ability to parse media. They can't even get the name of the thing they're criticizing right.
They can't even review bomb the right fucking thing. It's like, that sums up the, like, just intelligence of people that have decided to give that thing a bad review based on nothing other than, women existing and black people existing.
Remember we talked about how, like, Ernest Cline has not watched Akira? They've not watched it.
Yeah, no.
And
the people told by someone on Reddit to be mad about it.
Yeah, and the YouTubers that they watch who say they've watched it also haven't watched it. They skimmed through it on Disney Plus as quickly as they could to get the clips that they needed to put into their review.
And
and then they've gone and read other people's reviews. So the person you see on Reddit who got it from a YouTuber who reviewed it probably got it from another person who reviewed it, who probably got that from the Wikipedia summary that they quickly scanned through to get their review up as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and it's just this wild echo chamber that's so stupid they can't even fucking review on the right project.
I struggle to call it an echo chamber because an echo chamber means that the original sound can still be heard. It's not. It's like, do you know when you drop something like down, like when you drop, like if you dropped it down the drain and it's just gone. Like, do you know if you're like walking down the street and let's just say you had like a piece of shit written on a piece of paper and you dropped it down the grate. That's it. That's the echo. It's not an echo. It just lands in the sewer and someone picked it back up and went, this is it. because there's no echo, because there's
No.
nothing being repeated. There's nothing
Mhm.
original. Because for it to be echoed, it means there's some trace of like the actual thing being repeated. There's not. There's no aspect of it because they're not basing their opinion on any aspect of reality.
But you know
Like I
what
said,
you can do, Carl? You can
what's that?
maybe base your opinion on Metroid Prime from a more modern stance soon.
Mm-hmm.
And
I'll give it 6 out of 10.
maybe we'll do that at some point in the future. Carl reevaluates Metroid Prime.
Yeah, no, because I'll admit now, I'll clarify my statement. Like, I clarify why I like the Metroid series, and that's why just it didn't interest me. And then I said like, I didn't have the opportunity to play it all that much. I only had it like when I was at friends' houses, and then I did play Metroid Hunters, and I enjoyed that because I had a different context for its existence.
Yeah, maybe one day we can figure that out and get Carl to like
Mhm.
try Metroid Prime again.
And here's the
'Cause
thing.
after
I
all,
was gonna-
Carl, top 11 games of all time apparently.
Yeah, I've just got like a thought here. Do you think I, as an individual, have enough clout to get onto Metacritic? I'm not saying that I want to, but do you think if I pivoted real hard to reviews,
Yes.
we
Yeah,
could
if
get on
you
that?
pivoted and took a bit of time building up that rep, then yes, I think that you would probably be able to get yourself listed as a critic on Metacritic.
It's because when I like look at some of those reviews and it's just like, who gives a fuck comicbook.com or something like that, give it like 6 out of 10 and there, and then you click on it and it's like 400 views.
Yeah. I would even go as far to say that just Wiki Weekends alone could probably pivot and get ourselves listed on a critic list eventually.
Yeah, I
with
do
the
wonder that.
small following that we have, or like not small, but small in comparison to like a fucking IGN or something. You know what I mean?
The annoying thing is as well, I wouldn't want to do that, even though I have a degree in media analysis,
Mm-hmm.
because I don't think even with all that knowledge and like experience I have, I still don't think my opinion should count any more than just it should your friend.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, and that's kind of where we sit. I think amongst like the pantheon of opinions is like treat it as a couple of friends having discussions and like giving some recommendations rather than like critical analysis and reviews and stuff.
I don't think I've ever given like I always give the caveat. I think it's always assumed that hey, it's just my opinion, but also as well, I never want to give any sort of authoritative statement because even though I've got a degree in media analysis, it's like the Dunning-Kruger effect almost of the more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, like, I think I'm not like saying other reviews don't have this skill set or knowledge, but it must be something they have to unlearn.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
It's I'm getting a lot of them are fucking idiots and don't know what they're talking about. I can say
Well,
that for free.
it's very funny though. Like speaking of which, of like obviously the rhetoric that critics and game critics and stuff are all like sellouts that take bribes and are paid by companies to give good or bad reviews and stuff. Really funny the moment one outlet didn't give the Elden Ring DLC a 10 out of 10 and gave it like a 6 out of 10. People all fucking rioted of like, how dare this person not give it a 10 out of 10. It's like, but I thought they were all, people you couldn't trust and were bribed and paid for. And it's like, so you don't want them to always give everything a 10 out of 10 because they've clearly been bribed. But also, you hate it when they don't give the thing you like all a 10 out of 10 because, like, it's just, you can't listen to these people.
I think it's what also puts me off from like ever engaging with that aspect of it. Because even if I was able to get over that whole thing of not thinking, because I'd endlessly like go over my review because I'd like never want to like miss something out. Even if I managed to get over that part of it, I don't think I'd want to put it out there because just the amount of effort I put in, I know from experience of working online, no one would read it because no one's going to read it. They're going to read the number that I put. And I think that as well be heartbreaking to put that much effort into something like into reviewing something, and the only people care about is like what number did you give it down?
Yeah. like the classic thing of just ignore the entire review and scroll down to the in score at the bottom.
I think that also puts me off of. It'd be a shame to put that much effort into something where it's just the only thing people listen to is. Then again, we make YouTube videos where people listen to the first 5 minutes and say, "Get to the point."
Oh,
Get to the point.
People get angry the fact that like we have to put a title as the title and then like respond to just what the title of the video is without ever watching it. It's like, yeah, it's there to be a summary to get people in, but like you're meant to listen to the discussion and have a conversation with us. But oh well, that doesn't too much. I'm sure people by this point, if they are still hearing this podcast, they've had over 2 hours worth of discussion to listen to, so we should probably leave it there.
We should, yes. I think that more than anything shows like the fact we never want to leave anything. We always try. We just go so. We constantly question ourselves. Like, have we said enough, or have we clarified our position enough? Or
I think that's one funny thing that, like, you know, some people sometimes get like annoyed with us because like, okay, we get it, get to the point kind of thing. But we're just both people that want to make sure that we've always clarified things as much as possible.
it's also from experience as well, because like I started this thing like I don't like Metroid Prime, and then my position softened. It's not that my position softened or Lucas changed my mind. It's that you got to make a declarative statement, because if I started with okay, the wishy-washy answer of okay, I like this bit, but then there's this bit that puts me off, it's off-putting, right? It's the same thing when we do like I think we did a video about Star Wars, where it's like we started like I don't like Darth Maul as a character, and then 5 minutes later we're talking about aspects of the characterization we enjoy. A bunch of comments on that video are, if you don't like the character, why are you talking about it? It's like, no, that's just how we open it. And then we go through,
and then it becomes a discussion. But oh well, I'm gonna stop us both there because I can feel us just like going down another rabbit hole.
So we summarize our feelings, then we explain why, and that explanation might seemingly contradict what we said, but it's just explaining it, because it's very hard to summarize something in a few sentences or words that has all the nuance you'd actually like to get across.
Of course, and that's why you shouldn't always just scroll to the score at the bottom of a review.
Too much water.
Too much water is the perfect example that we've already spoken about. Thank you all for listening. Hope everyone has a lovely time, and thank you all for anyone that's gotten to the end of this like rather long podcast. But yes, cheers everyone who watches. I guess remember to like, comment, subscribe, and all that jazz to help us and keep our ridiculous conversations going.
Yes. Cheers, everybody.
You all.